Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto became the ultimate rating game champion and won Issei's entire peerage as his prize? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Anomaly. The first sensation was falling. The second was tearing. Naruto Uzumaki knew the feeling of being ripped apart. He'd been skewered, burned, and beaten to a pulp. This was different. This was not a wound of the body, but of the soul. Kagaya's last, desperate attack had not been a spear of bone but a void of spite, a spatial rift that had snagged him and Sasuke both. He'd felt Sasuke's hand rip free, a desperate, failed grasp in the chaotic non-space between worlds, and then he was alone. He fell through darkness that was not dark, through colors he couldn't name. His chakra, a sun-bright ocean inside him, was being siphoned away, not by an enemy, but by the sheer, abrasive pressure of nothing. It was the only thing keeping him coherent, his golden cloak flickering like a dying star. A single point of life in an unraveling void. Then, impact. It wasn't a crash, but a sickening arrival. The oppressive non-pressure vanished, replaced by air so thick and heavy it was like breathing wet ash. He coughed, his lungs burning, his body screaming in protest. Every joint ached. His chakra reserves, normally vast enough to share with an army, felt like a shallow, muddy puddle. He was empty. He pushed himself up from ground that felt like damp velvet. Black grass. The trees were skeletal, their trunks a deep, bruised purple, their branches clawing at a sky that was a profound, sickening crimson. There was no sun, no moon, just that oppressive, blood-red light, casting everything in a demonic glow. Kurama, he whispered. Silence. Not the usual grumpy silence of a tenant who'd been woken up, but a true, terrifying void. He couldn't feel him. He couldn't feel the Biju. He couldn't even feel the lingering warmth of his parents' chakra. He was, for the first time in his life, utterly alone. Panic, cold and sharp, tried to claw its way up his throat. He slammed it down. Analyze. Move. Survive. He was a shinobi. He was a survivor. He forced himself to his feet, his body a symphony of pain. He was weak, weaker than he'd been since he was a child. He could feel a meager thread of chakra inside, but it was battered, dormant, cowering from the alien energy that permeated this place. It wasn't natural energy. It was something else. It felt old and angry. A sound cut through the oppressive silence. Not a scream, but a shriek, like metal tearing. It was Folo, wed by a concussive boom that shook the black grass, a wave of energy that was hot and fundamentally wrong. Battle. His instincts, honed by a lifetime of war, took over. Pain was a distraction. Weakness was a detail. He moved, a shadow flitting between the purple trees, his tattered black and orange uniform a stark contrast to the alien landscape. He was slow. His movements felt sluggish, the air resisting him like water. But his silence was absolute. He reached the edge of a clearing and his breath caught. It was a massacre. Or it was about to be. In the center of the clearing, a creature defied sanity was tearing apart a unit of armored soldiers. It was a grotesque chimera, a 15-foot-tall amalgamation of shadows, claws, and too many limbs, all fused together in a mockery of a bipedal form. It dripped a black, viscous energy that hissed and popped as it struck the ground, and it roared with a dozen different voices. Astray, though Naruto couldn't have known the name. Opposing it, were two men who stood out from the soldiers. One, with long, vibrant red hair, was calmly observing, a serene, almost bored expression on his face as he gestured. A sphere of black-red energy, impossibly dense, would appear and simply unmake chunks of the monster, but the thing regenerated with horrifying speed. The other man, with green hair and glasses, wasn't fighting at all. He was writing. Equations and formulas, glowing green, appeared in the air around him, shifting and changing as he analyzed the beast. The armored guards were dying. They were good, moving with tactical precision, but the monster was a force of nature. It swatted one guard into a tree, the crack of armor and bone sickening. It pinned another, its claws tearing through a magical barrier like paper. Searzex, the green-haired man said, his voice calm over the din. Its regenerative properties are not magical, but conceptual. It's healing itself by pulling in raw, chaotic energy. Your power of destruction is erasing the matter. But not the template. We need to sever its anchor to this territory. A bit busy at the moment, Ajuka, the red-haired man, Searsex, replied. His voice was light, almost playful, but his power was anything but. He raised his hand and a vast wave of that same destructive energy turned the entire left side of the monster to dust. It roared and was back, fully formed, in less than a second. Fascinating, Ajuka murmured, dodging a spray of black bile without looking up from his calculations. It's learned. The monster, its dozen eyes swiveling, ignored the two powerful men. It had identified the weaker prey. It lunged, not at Searsex, not at Ajuka, but at a guard who was shielding another, wounded soldier. Its claw, dripping with that unmaking ooze, was a foot from the guard's helmet. Naruto didn't think. He didn't have the chakra for a Rasengan. He didn't have the strength for a KCM burst. He had only instinct and a flicker of will. He moved. He burst from the tree line, a blur of orange and black. He wasn't fast, not by his standards, but he was faster than the guard's death. He grabbed the armored man by the pauldron and pulled, shoving him and the wounded soldier behind him in a single fluid motion. He skidded to a halt on the black grass, one hand on the ground, and looked up. The world went silent. The monster froze, its claw inches from his face. Its many eyes blinked. It tilted its head, as if confused by the new, delicious-smelling morsel that had appeared. Searsex Lucifer's hand, raised for another blast, paused. His serene expression was broken, replaced by one of pure, unfiltered surprise. Ajuka Beelzebub dropped his glowing pen. His formulas dissolved. Searsex, he breathed, his eyes wide behind his glasses. Look at his energy. It's beautiful. Naruto didn't hear them. He was staring into the maw of the beast. He was tired. He was lost. His friends were gone. And this thing was in his way. Get out of my face, he snarled. The stray roared, a sound of triumph, and brought its claws down to shred the newcomer. Naruto's eyes narrowed. He felt the dregs of his chakra, the last muddy puddle at the bottom of his well. He didn't have enough for Sage Mode. He didn't have enough for a Biju Bomb. But he had enough for one. He held up his right hand. A swirl of blue, unstable chakra sputtered into existence. It was weak, barely a Rasengan. He poured everything left into it. He forced his will into the energy, forcing it to rotate, to stabilize. The stray's attack descended. He added his other hand. Wind, he yelled, his voice raw. He forced the elemental affinity. The sphere of blue energy screamed. It shrieked, the sound of 1,000 blades vibrating at impossible speeds. The sound alone made the monster hesitate, its instinct screaming a warning. The sphere elongated, 4 massive, terrifyingly sharp points of wind chakra spinning out from the core. Fuden. Rasenshuriken. It was smaller than his usual. Unstable, but it was enough. This is all I've got. He roared, and he didn't throw it. He shoved it, with all his remaining strength, directly into the monster's chest. For a half second, nothing happened. The monster looked down at the screaming ball of chakra embedded in its flesh. Then, the world turned white and loud. A dome of pure, howling wind erupted outwards. Naruto was thrown back, his body tumbling across the grass. The armored guards were sent flying. Even Searsex and Ajuka had to brace themselves, a barrier of demonic power flashing into existence before them. It wasn't an explosion. It was a dissection. The monster was enveloped in a sphere of microscopic, invisible wind blades. It didn't even have time to roar. It was being cut, over and over, millions of times a second. It wasn't being destroyed. It was being unmade on a cellular level, its very atoms severed from one another. When the light and sound faded, there was a 30-foot crater in the ground. It was perfectly smooth, almost glassy. Of the grotesque stray, there was no blood, no shadow, no trace. Just nothing. Silence returned to the clearing, heavier than before. The surviving guards, maybe a dozen, slowly picked themselves up. Staring at the crater, then at the orange-clad boy who was now lying face down in the grass. Naruto pushed himself to one knee, breathing in ragged, painful gasps. That was it. He was done. His reserves were not just empty, they were in a deficit. His vision was swimming. Well, A calm, pleasant voice said from behind him. That was certainly an impressive solution. Naruto's head snapped up. The red-haired man, Searzex, was standing 10 feet away, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't look like he'd been in a fight at all. The green-haired one, Ajuka, was beside him, practically vibrating with academic excitement. Your energy, Ajuka said, taking a step forward. It's not magic. It's not a sacred gear. It's internal. You're molding it conceptually. You applied a shape transformation, then a nature transformation, but the final result, a severing of bonds on a microscopic, no, a systemic level. How? Was it a subharmonic vibration? Did you infuse the wind with a separation concept? Fascinating. Naruto just stared at him, too tired to form a coherent thought. It's just my jutsu. Searzex put a calming hand on Ajuka's shoulder. Ajuka, please. Our guest is clearly exhausted. And, I suspect, very, very lost. He turned his full attention to Naruto. The man's eyes were a striking blue-green, and they held an ancient, patient power that made Naruto's skin crawl. It wasn't hostile. It was absolute. This man was a king. You are not from around here, are you? Searzex asked, his voice gentle. Naruto finally found his voice. It came out as a croak. Where is here? You are in the underworld, Searzex said, as if commenting on the weather. The ancestral home of the devils. My name is Searzex Lucifer. This is my colleague, Ajuka Beelzebub. And you are a complete and total anomaly. They didn't teleport him. They walked. Searzex explained that a sudden spatial transfer, given Naruto's exhausted state and the volatile nature of his energy, might unravel him. The walk gave Naruto time to process, his body slowly, painfully knitting itself back together. The air was still wrong, but his chakra was beginning to circulate. A tiny, defiant ember in the dark. They moved from the purple forest to a city that defied his senses. Buildings twisted into the sky, their architecture a blend of Gothic nightmare and futuristic elegance. The blood-red sky was a constant, oppressive ceiling. Beings with bat-like wings flew through the air. The people on the streets, some looked human, others had small horns, pointed ears, or eyes that glowed with inner power. They took him to a small, impossibly discreet manor tucked away in a quiet district. It was elegant, comfortable, and, as Naruto instantly sensed, shielded by more layers of protective feeling energy than Konoha's entire barrier. They sat him in a plush chair by a fireplace that burned with cool, blue flames. A moment later, a woman with silver hair and a maid's uniform placed a cup of tea in front of him. It smelled like apples and lightning. He drank it. The effect was instantaneous. His exhaustion didn't vanish, but the bone-deep ache receded. His chakra reserves felt less violated. Better, Searzex asked, seated opposite him. Ajuka was pacing the room, muttering to himself about cellular-level applications and non-demonic senjutsu. Naruto nodded, his throat still raw. You're devils. Like the devils. A common misconception, Searzex smiled. We are a species, an ancient, long-lived, and powerful one, yes. The devils of human myth are gross exaggerations based on misinterpretations of our ancestors' interactions with your world. He leaned forward, his friendly demeanor becoming more serious. What we are, Naruto Uzumaki, we found your name on your pack, is a society in a precarious state of peace. For the next hour, they explained. They told him of the Great War, of the three factions, devils, angels, and fallen angels, of the staggering losses that had annihilated the original Lucifer, the original god, and countless others. They told him of the new generation, Searzex, Ajuka, Michael, Azazel, who had taken over and forced a truce, a cold war built on the understanding that one more real war would mean total, mutual annihilation. We are a species on the brink, Naruto, Searzex said, his voice losing its playful edge. Our population is devastatingly low. We cannot afford to lose a single high-class devil, let alone the thousands a war would cost. So, we found another way. A proxy, Ajuka said, finally stopping his pacing. He tapped his glasses. A way to settle disputes, to maintain a hierarchy, and to give the new generation a taste of combat without the irreversible finality of true war. A system I created. He calls them the rating games, Searsex said. We use a system of pieces, based on chess, to reincarnate other beings into devils, to bolster our numbers, and to form peerages. Teams. These teams then compete in sanctioned, high-stakes games. The outcomes of these games can determine marriages, territory, and political standing. Naruto was silent, processing. His mind, honed by strategy and a lifetime of conflict, was working fast. So, you replaced war with competitions. Precisely, Searsex said. That's smart, Naruto admitted. But it's not real. It's a game. People will get arrogant. They'll forget what real loss feels like. Searsex's smile was thin, and, for the first time, held a hint of sadness. You are more perceptive than you know. That is exactly what has happened. The games have become stagnant. The old blood, the great houses, they rely on the same power, the same strategies. Our power, while great, is known. That stray you fought, that was a new breed, one that had adapted to our magic. It was becoming immune. Your jutsu was something it had no context for. No defense. You destroyed it. Ajuka took over, his eyes gleaming with an intensity that was almost frightening. Your energy, Naruto, it is not demonic. It is not holy. It is not draconic. It is a source all its own. You call it chakra. I call it the ultimate variable. The system I built, the evil pieces, a standard king piece would shatter trying to contain you. He paused, walking to a small, intricate box on the mantel. He opened it. Inside, resting on a velvet cushion, was a single, black, intricately carved chess piece. A king. But it was different. It pulsed with a faint, complex light, and Naruto could see the formulas, the equations. Swirling deep inside it, I have been working on a theory, Ajuka said, his voice a reverent whisper. A mutant piece. A piece that doesn't just convert a being, but adapts to them. One that can house a power that exists outside our known triangle of magic. I designed it for a theoretical being, a god from another pantheon, perhaps. Or, you. Searsex stood, walking to the window, staring out at the red sky. Naruto Uzumaki, you are alone in a world that is not your own. You are a warrior without a war, a hero without a home. I am offering you one. Naruto looked from the king piece to Searsex's back. What do you want from me? To be that variable, Searsex said, turning. His eyes were no longer friendly. They were the eyes of a king. I want you to enter the rating games. I want you to shatter the stagnation. I want you to show our people what new power looks like. Show them that lineage and blood purity are not the only paths to strength. You want me to be your attack dog, Naruto said, his voice flat. I want you to be a catalyst, Searsex corrected gently. A rival, a goal, a new king, for the new generation to measure themselves against. And, in return, he smiled. You get a purpose, a place. You will have access to our knowledge, our resources. And, if you are as good as I believe you are, you will gain the influence to make real change. To protect more people, isn't that what you did, just now, for a guard you had never met? Naruto looked down at his hands. They were calloused, scarred. They were the hands of a protector. Searsex had read him perfectly. He was lost, and more than anything, he hated feeling useless. This was a mission. A new one. A game, to prevent war, Naruto mused. He thought of the Chunin exams. How they were meant to be a proxy for war between villages. It was a flawed system. But it was better than the alternative. He looked up, his blue eyes, once dull with exhaustion, now holding a familiar, burning spark. One condition, Naruto said. Searsex raised an eyebrow. My peerage, as you call it, if I do this, if I build a team, they're my team. They're my family, not my slaves. I won't be a master. I'll be a leader, a cage. Ajuka Beelzebub let out a short, sharp laugh of pure delight. He picked up the king piece from the box. I had a feeling you'd say that. A leader who doesn't wish to rule. The perfect variable. He held out the piece. Let's call this a new covenant, then. A mutant king, for the sage king. Naruto stood. His body still ached, but his will was iron. He reached out and took the piece. The moment his fingers closed around the cold, carved stone, it flashed. It didn't reject him. It welcomed him. A torrent of golden, chaotic, warm chakra, his chakra, poured from his body into the piece, and the piece poured something back into him. Knowledge. The language of this world. The rules of the games. The faces of the major players. It settled into his mind. Seamless and instant. The piece in his hand flared. The black wood now shot through with veins of pulsating gold. It felt like a part of him. And at that exact second, the world lurched. It wasn't a physical tremor. It was a nauseating skip, as if reality itself had just flinched. The blue flames in the fireplace sputtered and went out. The teacup in Naruto's hand cracked. Searsex stumbled, his hand on the wall, his calm expression gone. Ajuka grabbed his head, his face pale. What was that? Searsex demanded, his voice a low growl. A spatial quake. Ajuka was already looking at a device on his wrist, his fingers flying. His face went from pale to sheet white. No. Gods, no. Searsex. For exactly 1.3 nanoseconds, every magical and spatial sensor in the underworld, the heavens, and Rigori, went blind. What? They just stopped, Ajuka whispered, his eyes wide with a dawning, academic horror. All of them, simultaneously, as if something vast, something outside, just looked at us, scanned us, and then looked away. Naruto said nothing. He was staring at his hand, clenching the new, golden-veined king piece. He had felt it, too. A cold, ancient, and utterly appraising feeling. It hadn't been directed at the underworld. It had been directed at him. The new piece of the puzzle. The thread that didn't belong. Searsex Lucifer looked at Naruto. And for the first time, Naruto saw real, profound concern in the great Satan's eyes. The variable he had so desperately wanted, he had gotten it. And it had just announced itself to the cosmos. Then we must get you ready, Searsex said, his voice tight. Immediately. Welcome to the underworld, Naruto Uzumaki. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. The Sage King's Ascent. 1 year can change everything. A year ago, Naruto Uzumaki was a refugee, a flicker of alien energy in a world that shouldn't exist. He was a king with no court, a warrior with no mission. Today, he was a legend. The arena, a massive coliseum carved from a floating mountain of black obsidian, was screaming his name. Not Naruto, not Uzumaki. The denizens of the underworld, in their infinite, dramatic flair, had given him a title. Sage King, Sage King, Sage King. The chant was a physical force, shaking the private viewing box where the Grimoire Peerage sat. Issei Hyodo drummed his fingers on the velvet railing, his face a mask of poorly concealed jealousy. I don't get it, he grumbled, his voice low enough for only his king to hear. It's just another match. Why are they so obsessed with this guy? Because he's new, Issei, Kiba Yudo said, his arms crossed as he stared intently at the battlefield below. The arena floor was a perfect replica of a ruined city, skyscrapers jutting like broken teeth from a cracked, overgrown landscape. And because he's undefeated, so am I, Issei shot back. You are undefeated among the new generation, Rias Grimoire corrected, her voice soft but firm. She never took her eyes from the arena. He is undefeated, period. In 1 year, he has risen from an unknown to the #1 contender for the rating game championship. He has beaten houses that have stood for 10,000 years. And he has done it with only 3 pieces. Akano Himahima giggled, her hand covering her mouth. My, and such unusual pieces, too. On the arena floor, Naruto stood atop a rusted-out water tower, the wind whipping his short, golden hair. He'd traded his tattered shinobi uniform for something more practical: black cargo pants, sturdy combat boots, and a simple, high-collared, form-fitting black shirt with the crimson Uzumaki spiral on the back. His only nod to his new life was a long, sweeping, sleeveless white coat, like his father's, but marked with the symbol of his new peerage, a swirling, golden 9-tailed fox. He looked calm. He looked bored. He looked, as one sports commentator had famously declared, like a man waiting for a bus in the middle of a war zone. Across the ruined city, his opponent, Saraorg Bale, stood on the ground, rolling his thick, muscular neck. Saraorg was the walking definition of raw power. He was a pillar of muscle and fighting spirit. And his peerage was a reflection of him. All power, all offense. His queen, his pawns, and his rooks were all spread out, forming a tight, aggressive perimeter. They knew Naruto's game. They were trying to counter it. And here we go. A magical, amplified voice boomed across the stadium. It was the head commentator, Graphia Lucifuge, her voice uncharacteristically animated for the broadcast. The challenger, Lord Saraorg Bale, is taking a strong central position. He knows the Sage King prefers a seek and destroy strategy. Issei snorted. He just hides and uses those stupid clones. It's a coward's tactic. It's a shinobi's tactic, Kiba corrected, his eyes narrowed. And it's working. As if summoned by his words, the city changed. From a dozen different alleys. From the shattered windows of skyscrapers, from the cracked pavement of the streets, they emerged. Not one Naruto. Not 10. 1,000. 1,000 shadow clones flooded the city. They ran up walls. They leapt from rooftops. They poured through the streets in a silent, golden-coated tide. The stadium roared. This was his signature. The one-man army. And there it is, screamed the co-commentator. A flashy lower-class devil named Bixlow. The tailed beast tsunami. How does Bale's team even begin to counter this? How do you find the real one? You don't, Rias murmured, her crimson hair catching the light. You weather the storm. Saraorg grinned. It was a predator's smile. So, his voice boomed, amplified for the crowd. This is the power of the Sage King. Then let us meet it. He punched the ground. Punched the ground. A shockwave of pure, golden, leonine energy erupted from his fist, traveling through the earth. The pavement buckled. The wave of force, imbued with the power of the Regulus Nemea. His sacred gear, turned the first 200 clones into so much smoke. Ooh, a direct counter from Lord Saraorg. Naruto, the real Naruto, still on the water tower, didn't even flinch. He just watched. Saraorg's team sprang into action. His pawns, a unit of hand-to-hand specialists, charged the remaining clones, their fists glowing. His queen, a beautiful, stern-looking woman, began levitating debris. Launching cars and slabs of concrete into the swarms. This is all just a distraction, Issei, Kiba said, his fingers twitching, as if he were holding a sword. He's not trying to win with the clones. He's mapping. He's testing their defenses. He's seeing how they react. While his real pieces move in, Akeno added, her violet eyes focused on two blurs. The first blur was a streak of pale blue. She was moving with a speed that defied physics, a short, slight girl with silver hair and a rapier that flickered like a needle of light. This was Soru, his knight. A stray devil he'd found half dead. A victim of experimentation. She'd been made to be fast, and Naruto had taught her to be lethal. She appeared from the shadow of a falling bus, her blade aimed directly at Saraorg's queen. The queen, expecting the attack, had a shield of debris ready. The thwack of the rapier hitting the concrete was louder than a gunshot. But Soru was already gone, her attack a feint. She was now 20 feet to the left, engaging Saraorg's rooks, her speed a dazzling, dizzying display of footwork. His knight is fast, Zenobia Quarta noted from the back of the box, her voice flat. Faster than Kiba. Kiba nodded, not offended. She's not just moving, she's exploiting. She's finding the gaps in their perception. He trained her well. The second blur was not a blur at all. It was an earthquake. A massive, 10-foot-tall golem of obsidian and steel, its body covered in glowing, blue fuinjutsu seals, rose from the ground. This was Gantetsu, his rook. A golem master Naruto had discovered in the ruins of a forgotten city, bound to a vow of silence and defense. Naruto hadn't just tamed him, he'd befriended him, offering him a purpose beyond simply existing. Gantetsu slammed his massive fists together. The earth between him and Saraorg's main force rose, forming a 30-foot wall of jagged stone, separating Saraorg's pawns from their king. And there's the Sage's Fortress. Bixlow yelled. Gantetsu, the unmoving rook, has just split the battlefield. Saraorg's power hitters are trapped with clones, while his queen is being harassed by the blue flash, Soru. A classic pincer and divide, Graphia noted, her voice the only calm in the stadium. An amateurish strategy, if not for the sheer, overwhelming scale. He is pinning Saraorg's entire peerage with only 2 pieces and a sea of distractions. So where's the real one? Issei demanded, scanning the clones. Rias pointed. Right where he's been the whole time. He's not running, Issei. He's waiting. On the water tower, Naruto stretched his neck. He watched as Saraorg, now isolated, bellowed in challenge. He watched his knight, Soru, gracefully retire one of Saraorg's rooks with a precise, chakra-enhanced tap to the back of the neck. He watched his rook, Gantetsu, absorb a full-power blast from Saraorg's queen, the Fuinjutsu seals on his body flaring as they ate the demonic energy. His team was doing their job. Now, it was his turn. Saraorg, his patience gone, his blood singing with the thrill of the fight, looked up at the water tower. Enough hiding, Sage King. Face me, one-on-one. Or are you a coward? Naruto smiled. A small, sharp, almost feral smile. In the Grimoire box, Akino's breath hitched. Oh, my. Naruto vanished. Not in a flicker of speed. Not in a burst of magic. He just vanished. Saraora spun, his combat instinct screaming. He threw a punch into the air behind him. His fist, wreathed in the golden aura of Regulus, connected with something. Naruto's hand. He had caught Saraorg's punch. His body was now covered in a cloak of golden, bubbling chakra, his eyes no longer blue, but a stark, cross-slitted orange. Sage mode. The shockwave from the 2 attacks meeting blew the water tower to shrapnel. And there he is. Bixlow's voice cracked with excitement. The king has engaged. Sage mode is active. Saraorg, his eyes wide with shock that his punch had been caught, roared and threw another. Naruto didn't catch it. He deflected it, his palm slapping Saraorg's wrist, turning the devastating blow aside. He flowed like water, his movements economical, precise. He wasn't just reacting to Saraorg, he was anticipating him. This is. Kiba leaned forward, his knuckles white. He's dismantling his stance. Saraorg is a master brawler. But Naruto, he's a master martial artist. Saraorg was all power, each punch capable of shattering a mountain. Naruto was all grace, all control. He was in close, too close for Saraorg to build momentum. His palms and knuckles striking pressure points, joints, and nerve clusters. Saraorg's arm went numb. A jab to the ribs made his lungs seize. He's not just hitting him, Rias breathed. A look of dawning horror and respect on her face. He's teaching him. He's showing him every flaw in his form. Enough. Saraorg bellowed, his pride wounded. He exploded with lion-like energy, forcing Naruto back. You mock me. I am the Lord of Baal. I am the strongest. I will not be played with. He crouched, his muscles swelling. The golden aura of Regulus flared, becoming almost blinding. Balance breaker. The transformation was explosive. Golden, leonine armor, heavy and powerful, encased Saraorg's body. The air pressure in the stadium tripled. His power level, broadcast on the monitors, shot into the red. Regulus ray leather. He roared. He was a demigod of physical power. In the stands, Issei felt a bead of sweat run down his temple. Okay. That's almost as strong as my juggernaut drive. Quote, Naruto, who had been pushed back 50 feet, just landed softly on a pile of rebar. He let out a long, slow breath. The orange pigment around his eyes darkened, and his golden chakra cloak flared, solidifying, its energies mixing with a wisp of red. He entered Kurama chakra mode. It wasn't the full Biju avatar. It was a sleek, form-fitting, solar flare bright shroud of power. The black markings on his coat and shirt became more pronounced. His presence, which had been like a mountain, became like a sun. And the Sage King responds. Graphia announced, her voice now tight. His signature transformation. We still have no classification for this power, but its output is immeasurable. The sensors are failing. The broadcast feed, shown on massive screens around the arena, suddenly dissolved into a blizzard of static. A sound cut through the air, a low, discordant thrum, like a trillion threads being plucked at once. In his private lab, Ajuka Beelzebub slammed his fist on his console. Damn it, not now. He rewound the sensor logs. There it was again. The same 1.3 nanosecond burst of blindness. The same whisper of an outside energy. He frantically tried to isolate the signal. In the static on his main screen, for a single, terrifying frame, he saw it. A pattern. Two faces, one weeping and one laughing, woven together from threads of light and shadow. Janice, he whispered. The Weaver. He's watching. In the stadium, the feed returned. The commentators, blaming the flicker on the clash of two suns, quickly refocused. But the fight was already over. It hadn't been a brawl. It had been an execution. The moment Saraorg charged, Naruto had been faster. The screens replayed it in slow motion. Saraorg, in his armor, was a golden comet. Naruto was a teleport. He appeared above Saraorg. In his hand, a sphere of golden chakra, impossibly dense, was already spinning. A perfect, one-handed Rasengan. Saraorg's instincts saved him. He tried to angle his pauldron to take the blow. He was too slow. Naruto didn't just hit the pauldron. He drove the Rasengan into the joint where the armor met the breastplate. The sound was not an explosion. It was a shatter. The Rasengan, a drill of pure, perfected chakra, didn't just break the balance breaker. It disintegrated it, the entire right side of Saraorg's armor, forged from the will of a Nemean lion, was ground into golden dust. The force of the impact sent Saraorg rocketing into the ground, creating a crater 100 yards wide. The arena was silent. From the smoke, Saraorg Bale, his armor gone, his body bruised but not broken, pulled himself to his feet. He was shaking. Naruto landed in front of him, his KCM cloak receding, leaving him back in his base form. He was unmarked. He wasn't even breathing hard. At the same time, two notifications appeared on the stadium's main screen. Lord Bale's queen has retired. Lord Bale's pawns 8 have retired. His two pieces, Soru and Gantetsu, had finished their work while the kings were dueling. It was a clean sweep. Saraorg looked at his hands, then at Naruto. He was defeated, utterly, completely, and strategically outclassed. He dropped to one knee, a sign of surrender. I yield, he panted. The words, Lord Bale's king has retired, flashed, and the match end siren wailed. The silence held for 1, 2, 3 seconds. Then, the stadium erupted. The roar was deafening. Sage King, Sage King, Sage King. Naruto looked at the kneeling Saraorg. He didn't gloat. He didn't celebrate. He just walked forward and extended his hand. Saraorg looked up, confused. That was a good fight, Naruto said, his voice quiet, but it was picked up by the audio sensors. Your punches are incredible. You just put too much weight on your front foot. It makes you easy to counter. Saraorg stared at the offered hand. This man had just humiliated him, dismantled his entire life's work, and was now giving him pointers. A slow, wide grin split Saraorg's battered face. He laughed. It was a deep, booming, honest laugh. He gripped Naruto's hand, and the Sage King pulled him to his feet in a single, easy motion. Uzumaki Naruto, Saraorg bellowed, raising their clasped hands in the air. You are a true warrior. The crowd's roar doubled. This was more than a victory. This was an anointing. In the Grimoire box, the mood was funereal. Kiba was rubbing his temples. He's not just a king. He's a general. Akano was fanning herself. All that power, and such control. Yufufu, Rias, you may have some serious competition. Issei was white-knuckled, his jaw tight. It was a cheap shot. That armor was tough. He found a weak point. It's a fluke. Issei, Rias said, her voice dangerously quiet. She finally turned to look at him, her blue-green eyes filled with a new, cold clarity. That was not a fluke. Did you see his pieces? They won their fights, too. His team is flawless. His strategy is flawless. And his power is on a level we have not yet comprehended. She looked back at the arena, where Naruto was now being joined by his silent, deadly knight and his hulking, sealed rook. The three of them stood together, an image of bizarre, disparate, and utterly unified strength. Rias looked at Issei, at his cocky, arrogant expression, at the way he dismissed a power T. Had just brought one of the great houses to its knees. She saw his pride, his reliance on Didraig, and his complete lack of tactical thought. And for the first time, seeing the Sage King standing victorious in the light. Rias Grimori felt a genuine, chilling premonition of defeat. He's not just dangerous, she whispered, a statement to herself. He's the future, and I don't know if we're ready for him. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. The Wager of Kings. The roar of the crowd was a physical weight, a wall of sound that vibrated in Naruto's bones. He stood in the victor's circle, his hand still clasped with Saraorg bales. A gesture of mutual respect that was being broadcast to every corner of the underworld. His knight, Soru, had materialized at his left, her expression as pale and unreadable as ever. Her hand resting on the pommel of her rapier. Gentetsu, his rook, was a silent mountain at his back, his blue seals pulsing with a calm, steady light. A magnificent match, Bixlow, the commentator, was yelling. Teleporting onto the arena floor with a media team. Lord Saraorg, a devastating loss. What are your thoughts? Saraorg, bruised and breathing heavily, just laughed, clappy. Ing Naruto on the shoulder hard enough to make a normal man stumble. My thoughts are that I need to train. He is a true warrior. He showed me my weakness, and I will come back stronger. The crowd roared again. Saraorg was a beloved figure, and his honorable defeat only cemented his status. And the Sage King. Bixlow shoved a glowing crystal microphone at Naruto's face. Another perfect victory. You've dismantled the Bale Peerage, one of the most powerful offensive teams in the games. How did you? Naruto just looked at the microphone, then at Bixlow, with a slightly confused expression. We trained. They fought hard. We fought smarter. He looked back at Saraorg. You're all raw power. You leave your center line wide open. We'll spar next week. I'll show you. Saraorg's eyes lit up. I will hold you to that. This exchange, this simple, straightforward promise of shared training, sent another shockwave through the political landscape. The Sage King wasn't just beating the old houses. He was befriending them. In the stands, Issei Hyodo's hand crushed the velvet railing. Spar. He's going to spar with him. He just beat him. He's supposed to be his rival. He is his rival, Issei, Kiba said, his voice tight as he watched the scene below. That's why they'll spar. They respect each other's strength. That's what true rivals do. TCH. Issei's aura flared, a brief, angry crimson. He's getting everything, all the attention, all the respect. It's supposed to be my year. Didrag's green gem on his gauntlet pulsed in sympathetic irritation. Issei, calm yourself, Rias said, her voice sharp. She had a dreadful feeling, a pit in her stomach that had been growing since the match began. This has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with us. Issei snapped, standing up. I'm the Red Dragon Emperor. I'm the one who beat Riser. I'm the one who beat Saji. He's just a new trick. And I'm tired of hearing about him. Akeno giggled, a dangerous, sparking sound. My, Issei. It sounds an awful lot like you're jealous. Be careful, it's not a very attractive color on you. I'm not jealous, Issei roared, drawing the attention of the sections around them. I'm pissed off. Come on, we're going down there. Issei. No, Rias commanded, grabbing his arm. But he was already moving, his peerage forced to follow in his wake. Asia looked terrified, Kaneko looked bored. And Kiba looked like he was marching to a funeral. This is a mistake, Kaneko muttered, nibbling on a chocolate bar. He's going to get his ass kicked. Down on the arena floor, Naruto was trying to extricate himself from the media. Look, I don't really do interviews. My team and I are going for ramen. Ramen, what is? Bixlow began, but he was cut off. Hey, Sage King. Issei's voice cut through the din. The Grimori Peerage, in their matching red and black uniforms, strode onto the field. The crowd, sensing a confrontation, went deathly quiet. The cameras all swung to face them. Naruto turned, his expression neutral. Can I help you? That was a pretty flashy win, Issei said, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he stomped to a halt 10 feet away. He hooked his thumbs in his belt, a poor imitation of a confident stance. But that clone and hide trick is getting old. Naruto blinked. It's not a trick, it's a strategy. And it seems to be working. It's a coward's strategy. Issei shot back. You let your team do the work, then you jump the king when he's busy. Why don't you try fighting a real team? One that's ready for you. Saraorg, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward. Hyodo, you're out of line. He won fairly. His tactics were superior. Stay out of this, Bale. Issei snarled. This is between me and him. He pointed at Naruto. I'm challenging you, Sage King. My team against yours. The Grimoire Peerage against, whatever this is. He gestured dismissively at Soru and Gantetsu. Soru's hand tightened on her rapier, her eyes narrowing to silver slits. Gantetsu's internal seals just flared, and the temperature around him dropped 20 degrees. Naruto held up a hand, a simple gesture that stopped his pieces cold. He looked at Issei, his head tilted. I just had a match. I'm tired, and I have no reason to fight you. He turned to leave. What's wrong? Afraid? Issei taunted. No, Naruto said over his shoulder. Bored. That one word struck Issei like a physical blow. His pride, his fame, his entire identity as the rising star, all of it shattered by one simple word. Rias grabbed his arm, her grip iron. Issei, stop this. You are embarrassing the Grimoire name. He's the one embarrassing us. Issei shook her off. He's making a mockery of the games. And you're just letting him. Issei, listen to your king, Kiba said, his hand on his sword. This is not the way. You're all against me, too. Fine. Issei was spiraling, his rage making his aura smoke. And then, a new voice cut through the tension. A soft, feminine voice from the edge of the victor's circle. He's right to be upset, Lord Grimoire. A woman stepped out from the crowd of reporters. She was beautiful, with long, midden-eyed black hair and eyes the color of amethysts. She wore the simple dress of a fan, but she held herself with the grace of a noble. She was Livia, a political analyst, who had become a popular media voice in the last few months. She was also, unknown to all, a voice for Janice. She smiled sweetly at Rias, then turned her pitying eyes on Issei. The Red Dragon Emperor, the hero of the underworld. Being told no, like a child by a newcomer. It's sad, really. What did you say? Issei growled. Livia put a delicate hand to her chest. I'm just saying what everyone is thinking. The Sage King is decisive. He's powerful. He just crushed Lord Bale. And you hide behind your king's name. Perhaps, he's just not interested in a king, who is really just a pawn. The insult was surgical. It struck at the very heart of Issei's insecurity. You bitch, Issei snarled. Issei. Rias was pale with fury. Apologized to her at once. But Livia just smiled. She leaned in, as if to share a secret. Her voice a poisonous whisper that was just loud enough for Issei, Rias, and the nearby Naruto to hear. I heard him, you know. In the press box last week. He said Lord Bale was a true warrior. But that the Grimoire team was a joke. He said the king was an arrogant child and her pawns were undisciplined. It was a perfect lie. Plausible, venomous, and aimed at Issei's two greatest prides, his own power and his loyalty to Rias. Naruto's head snapped around. I never said that, but the damage was done. Issei's vision had gone red. He didn't hear Naruto. He didn't hear Rias screaming his name. All he heard was the perceived insult against his king. You bastard, Issei roared, his red gauntlet appearing on his arm. You think you can insult Rias Bushu? You think you're better than us? Issei, he's lying to you, Kiba yelled, trying to get between them. I challenge you, Issei bellowed, his voice amplified by a sudden, demonic surge. An official, sanctioned match. My team against yours. Naruto, his eyes now cold and narrowed, just stared at him. I already said no, then I'll make you say yes. Issei was completely unhinged, his mind subtly poisoned by Janice's influence. We'll put it all on the line. No points, no territory. We'll wager everything. The stadium, the world, went silent. Even the commentators were speechless. Rias G. Grimoire looked like she had been turned to stone. Issei. What did you just say? Issei, in his blind rage, turned to her, his face a mask of furious pride. He thinks we're weak. I'll show him. I'll show all of them. We'll wager our peerages. He spun back to Naruto. Winner takes all. The loser gives up their entire peerage to the victor. Now, let's see you call that boring. The gasp from the crowd was a physical thing. This wasn't a rating game. This was a conquest, an ancient, brutal, and almost mythical rule that hadn't been invoked since before the Great War. He's mad, a noble whispered from the stands. He's just gambled the entire Grimoire line. Rias's legs gave out. She stumbled, Kiba catching her. Issei. No. You can't. Her voice was a terrified whisper. She looked at her family, at Kiba, Akeno, Kaneko, Asia. He had just bet them. Before anyone else could speak, two figures appeared on the field in a flash of crimson light. Sears X Lucifer and Ajuka Beelzebub. Sears X's face was unreadable, but the jovial, playful man was gone. Issei Hyodo, he said, his voice quiet, yet it carried to every corner of the silent arena. Do you have any comprehension of the wager you have just proposed? I do, Issei stammered, his rage finally beginning to crack, revealing the panic underneath. I challenge him, for the honor of my king. An all-in wager. Ajuka murmured, pushing his glasses up. He looked fascinated. The transfer of an entire peerage. The system allows for it. It would be a complete, magical transfer of all contracts and loyalties. The king's pieces would become the property of the new king. Rias Grimoire, Sears X said, turning his gaze on her. You are his king. This wager is invalid without your consent. You must confirm it. This was the trap, the political, social, and emotional trap that had just snapped shut. Rias looked at Sears X, her eyes pleading. Sears X Onisama, please. The challenge has been issued, Rias. Sears X said, his voice kind but his gaze iron. It has been heard by half the underworld. If you refuse now, if you declare that you have no faith in your team, the Grimoire name will be disgraced for 1,000 years. You will be a laughingstock, your authority gone. Your only option is to win. Rias was trapped. Her own pawn, her own fiancé, had just placed a gun to her head. If she said no, her life as a noble was over. If she said yes, she was gambling her family on a single, impossible fight. She looked at her team. At Kiba's grim resignation. At Akeno's fixed, tense smile. At Kaneko's wide, fearful eyes. At Issei's face, which was now dawning with the true, catastrophic horror of what he had just done. Rias Grimoire took a shuddering breath. She stood up, brushing Kiba's hand away. She was the heiress of a great house. She would not be seen to fall. She turned to Sears X, her face a pale, beautiful, and utterly broken mask. We accept the wager. The words hung in the air. Issei looked like he was going to be sick. And through it all, Naruto had been silent, watching. His face had gone from confusion, to annoyance, to a cold, hard, glacial fury. He finally spoke. His voice was low, and it cut through the stadium's silence like a kunai. No, everyone froze. Issei, Rias, Sears X. They all stared at him. What did you say? Issei stammered, his bravado gone. You're backing down. You're a coward. Naruto took one step forward. He wasn't in KCM. He wasn't in sage mode. But the pressure that rolled off him was immense, a wave of crushing. Ancient power that made Issei's gauntlet spark and Didrake's voice scream a silent warning in his head. I am not a coward, Naruto said, his voice flat. He wasn't yelling. He didn't need to. I am disgusted. He looked past Issei, his cold, blue eyes landing on Rias. You, he said, your king. He then looked at Kiba, at Asia, at Akeno. Your family, and you. He finally looked at Issei. You just put them on a betting table. You just gambled with their lives and their freedom because your pride was hurt. He took another step, and Issei flinched. They trust you. They follow you. They would die for you. And you, in a fit of childish, arrogant rage, just sold them. Issei's face was ashen. Shut up. You don't know anything. You're just scared. You know you'll lose to me. You're afraid of the Red Dragon Emperor. Naruto stopped, bare inches from him. The stadium, the world, seemed to narrow to this single confrontation. Naruto's blue eyes were like chips of Arctic ice. No, Issei Hyodo, he said, his voice so quiet, so devoid of emotion, that it was the most terrifying sound anyone in the arena had ever heard. I'm not afraid I'll lose. He let the silence stretch, forcing Issei to meet his gaze. I'm afraid you will. The implication was absolute. I am going to win. And you will have to live with what you've done. Naruto turned his back on the petrified Gremory Peerage. He faced Searsex. You were one of the 4 Satans. You sanctioned this madness. Fine. He looked up at the main broadcast camera, his voice now ringing with the absolute, unquestionable authority of a cage. I accept the challenge. I accept the wager. Not for pride, not for a prize, but because this level of arrogance, this sickness, it needs to be burned out. He turned and walked off the field. He didn't run. He didn't teleport. He just left. Soru, her face pale, and Gantetsu, his seals glowing with a cold, blue light, fell in step behind him. The Gremory Peerage was left alone in the center of the arena, under the horrified, pitying, and ecstatic stares of the entire underworld. Kiba turned and looked at Issei, and for the first time, there was no brotherhood in his eyes. Only a cold, deep, and profound contempt. Akeno was no longer smiling. Rias Gremory, her body trembling, finally broke. She covered her face with her hands and began to quietly, agonizingly, weep. In the shadows of the exit tunnel, Livia smiled, her face hidden from the cameras. Her smile was wide, and her eyes flashed, just for a moment, with a discordant, two-faced light. The tapestry was tearing, just as Janus had planned. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. The Fall of the Red Dragon. The waiting room for House Gremory was a tomb. The air was thick, suffocating. A toxic brew of Issei's frantic, sour sweat-smelling bravado and Rias Gremory's silent, arctic despair. They were dressed for a funeral, not a battle. All right, we can do this, Issei shouted, pacing back and forth. His voice cracking. He punched his own palm, a desperate, jerky motion. We're the Gremory team. We're a family. He can't beat family. Right, Bushu. Rias was sitting on a bench. Her back ramrod straight. She was staring at a crack in the tile floor as if it held the secrets to the universe. She hadn't spoken in an hour. Her face was a perfect, porcelain mask, but her eyes were dead. She had already lost. Bushu. Issei tried again, his voice smaller. Akeno Himahima was leaning against the wall, her arms crossed, forcing a smile so wide and GHT it looked like it was carved from glass. That's right, Issei-kun. We just have to fight our best. Yufufu. The giggle was a hollow, brittle sound. Kiba Yudo was in the corner, methodically cleaning a sword he'd already cleaned 5 times. His movements were precise, angry. He was checking his gear, checking his magical reserves, not out of preparation, but as a distraction. He refused to look at Issei. He refused to look at Rias. He was a knight about to be led to slaughter by a king who had abdicated and a pawn who had staged a coup. Kaneko Tuju sat on the floor, her knees drawn to her chest, methodically unwrapping and eating a chocolate bar. Her chewing was the only normal, rhythmic sound in the room. But her eyes, usually just bored, were wide and fixed. She was, for the first time, afraid. Asia Argento was in the other corner, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. She was praying, tears streaming silently down her face. She was praying for a miracle. She was praying for this to not be happening. Right, Issei yelled, his voice desperate. We just have to stick together. Rias Bushu, what's the plan? What's the strategy? Rias Gremory slowly, agonizingly, lifted her head. She looked at her team. Her family. The people she had gathered. The people she loved. The people Issei had just wagered. Her strategy was gone. Her intellect was gone. All that was left was the raw, primal instinct of an animal in a trap. The plan, she whispered, her voice hoarse. The plan is to stick together. Do not get separated. He picks teams apart. We will not be separated. We fight as one. Issei will be our core. We protect Issei. He is our only way to win. It was a terrible plan. A plan built on a single, failing piece. It was a plan of desperation. Kiba closed his eyes, his grip tightening on his sword hilt. Akeno's smile twitched, falling for a fraction of a second. This was it. This was the end of their house. In the Uzumaki waiting room, there was silence. It was not the silence of a tomb. It was the silence of a dojo. Naruto was on the floor, legs crossed, meditating. He was in his base form, his breathing slow and even. He was finding his center, not of power, but of purpose. This was not a game. It was not a competition. It was an execution. A distasteful, necessary, and tragic one. Soru, his knight, stood by the door, her back to him. She was sharpening her rapier with a small, enchanted whetstone. Shing, shing, shing. The sound was hypnotic, cold, and final. She was a blade, and her king was about to aim her. Gentetsu, his rook, was a mountain in the corner. His massive, stone and steel body was motionless, but the blue fuinjutsu seals that covered him were glowing with a calm, azure light. He was a shield, and he was ready. Naruto opened his eyes. The blue was clear, cold, and absolute. He had seen this before. He had seen villages make wagers of pride. He had seen shinobi gamble with the lives of their comrades. He had seen arrogance lead to ruin. He stood, his white coat settling on his shoulders. Soru, he said. King, she replied, not turning. Find the healer first, Asia, then the one who hides. Gasper, take them out, non-lethally. Gentetsu will flush them for you. But Asia is your priority. A team with a healer is a team that has hope. We take that away first. Understood. Her voice was a whisper of steel. Gentetsu. The golem's seals pulsed in acknowledgement. The two knights, Kiba and Xenovia, they'll be on you. They'll see you as a target, dumb brute. Let them, hold them, pin them. I will handle them when Soru is clear. The seals glowed brighter. And me, Naruto didn't need to turn. His third peerage piece, a new pawn he had, won, in a small, provincial game 6 months prior. Stepped from the shadows. She was a woman with wolf-like ears and a tail, her eyes a wild amber. Her name was Kiri, a renegade from a yokai faction. Kiri, Naruto said, his voice softening just a fraction. Your R knows. They will try to stick together. But they're panicked. They'll scatter at the first sign of pressure. You will find the queen. Akano. Do not engage her. Just mark her for me. And stay hidden. Your job is to not be seen. I live in the shadows, King, she said, her voice a low growl. She melted back into the corner, her form already disappearing. And Issei? Soru asked. Naruto closed his eyes. Issei is mine. The buzzer sounded. A cold, mechanical voice filled both rooms. Both teams, transfer to the field. Match will begin in 60 seconds. The world dissolved in a flash of red light. The Grimoire team materialized in the arena. It was the same ruined cityscape as the Bale match. A maze of broken skyscrapers, rebar-strewn streets, and shadowy alleys. The blood-red sky of the underworld hung above them, a canvas for their humiliation. Okay, stick together, Issei yelled, summoning his boosted gear. The red gauntlet felt heavy. Boost. The familiar sound was a comfort, but it felt hollow. Kiba, Xenovia, front. Rias commanded, her voice regaining a fraction of its old authority. Akano, the sky. Kaneko, you're on my right. Asia, Gasper, stay in the center. Issei, you are with me. We move as a single unit. The team formed a tight, defensive diamond. They were terrified, but they were together. Across the ruined city, a kilometer away, Naruto's team appeared. Gentetsu slammed his fists down, creating a small dust cloud. Soru just stood, a silver needle in the gloom. Kiri was already gone. Naruto looked at his team. Go. Gentetsu charged. He didn't use tactics. He was a 10-foot-tall battering ram of stone and steel, and he ran straight down the main street, his steps shaking the ground, the blue seals on his body flaring. Here it comes, Kiba yelled. It's the rook. It's just one piece. Issei countered. We take it down, together. No, Rias shouted, her tactical mind finally kicking in. It's a distraction. It's what he wants. Kiba, Xenovia, you two are the fastest. Intercept it. Slow it down. The rest of us will find the king. Kiba and Xenovia glanced at each other. The first order was already separate. But it was a logical one. On it, Bushu. The two knights broke from the formation, their blades drawn, and rocketed toward the charging golem. The first piece was broken from the hole. Akano, get up high. Find the others. Rias commanded. Right. Akano spread her black, leathery wings and shot into the sky, lightning crackling around her. The second piece was separated. The rest of you, with me. Rias, Issei, Kaneko, Asia, and the invisible Gasper began moving down a parallel street, seeking the king. Naruto, standing on a rooftop, watched it all. He watched Rias make the exact, predictable, logical mistakes he knew she would. Now, he whispered, and 1,000 shadow clones flooded the city. They poured from every broken window, every manhole, every alley. In an instant, the city was a roiling sea of orange and white coats. Rias's team stopped, horrified. Damn it, he was waiting. Issei yelled. It doesn't matter, Rias said, her eyes frantic. They're just clones. Power through them. But the clones weren't attacking. They were just running. They were running everywhere, creating chaos, blocking lines of sight, a perfect, swirling storm of confusion. And in that chaos, the real hunters began their work. Kaneko Tuju was leaping from car to car, her small fists shattering the clones that got in her way. These things are annoying, she muttered. She was trying to keep Rias and Issei in sight, but the sea of orange was too thick. Rias Bushu, she called. Kaneko, this way. Rias's voice was already distant. Kaneko cursed and prepared to jump to the next roof. She landed softly. You're too small to be alone. Kaneko froze. The voice was calm, male, and it came from right behind her. She spun, her fist cocked, imbued with all the senjutsu-enhanced power she could muster. Get! .. Quote. Naruto caught her fist. He just caught it. His hand, bare, wrapped around her tiny, mountain-shattering fist, and stopped it dead. Her shockwave dissipated. His arm didn't even tremble. Kaneko's eyes went wide with terror. He wasn't in his golden cloak. He wasn't in sage mode. He had just caught her. No, he said, his voice quiet. His eyes were the same cross-slitted orange as in his match with Saraorg. Sage mode. He had been in it. But it was so perfect, so balanced, there was no bubbling, overflowing chakra. Just pure, controlled power. How? She stammered. Your senjutsu, he said, not letting go. He spoke like a teacher, not a foe. It's raw, wild. You're just opening the tap and letting it flood you. It makes you strong, but it's sloppy. You have no control. Shut up, she screamed, and tried to kick him with her other foot. He let go of her fist and flowed around her kick, his hand sliding up her leg, his fingers tapping her knee. Her leg went dead. She stumbled, her balance gone. True sage mode isn't about using natural energy, he said, his voice still calm as he easily sidestepped her desperate, one-legged swing. It's about balancing it. You, me, and the world. All in harmony. You're just a vessel. And you're leaking. Shut up, she roared, a Nekomata's anger taking over. She dropped to all fours and lunged. Naruto just sighed. You're not ready to hear this. He didn't move. He just waited. As she flew at him, claws extended, he brought 2 fingers up. He didn't aim for her chest, or her head. He tapped her on the forehead. A single, precise, microscopic pulse of pure sage chakra. It didn't hurt her. It just overrode her. It severed her connection to her own chaotic energy. A master switch turning off a flickering, overloaded circuit. Kaneko's eyes rolled back. Her body went limp. She fell, unconscious, into his arms. He gently laid her on the rooftop. Sleep, he said. A cold, mechanical voice boomed across the city. House of Gremory, Pawn 1 retired. Kaneko. Rias screamed, her head snapping toward the sound of the announcement. No, Bushu, look out. Issei tackled her to the ground as a dozen clones swarmed the space she'd just been. I can't see. There are too many, Asia shrieked. From the shadows of an alley, Soru watched. She saw the healer, cowering behind the Red Dragon Emperor. She saw the invisible shimmer of the one who could stop time. She had her orders. She moved. She was a flicker, a whisper of pale blue. She passed through the storm of clones. And not one of them was disturbed. She was between their perceptions. She appeared directly behind Asia Argento. Asia didn't even have time to scream. Soru's rapier hilt came down in a perfect, precise arc, striking the base of Asia's neck. House of Gremory, Bishop 1 retired. Asia, Issei roared, spinning. He saw her body slump. He saw the silver-haired knight, Soru, already turning. "Oh no you don't," Issei yelled, firing a small dragon shot. Soru danced. She moved between the blast and the invisible Gasper Vladdy, her rapier a silver blur. She didn't stab him. She slapped him. She slapped his hidden, cowering form with the flat of her blade, the metal imbued with just enough of her king's chakra to trigger the retirement system. House of Gremory, Bishop, 1 retired. 3 announcements in less than 10 seconds. The Gremory team was being dissected. Miles away, Kiba and Xenovia were having their own personal hell. "It won't stop," Xenovia yelled, bringing Durandal down in a massive, holy energy-infused arc. The blow, which could cleave a mountain, struck the Rook, Gantetsu, full in the chest. The golem staggered back a single step. The blue Fuinjutsu seals on its chest flared, sizzled, and absorbed the holy power. It ate Durandal's power. Kiba yelled, his own sword birth blades shattering against the golem's obsidian hide. "It's a defensive, a sealing specialist. We can't break it. Then we go around it." Xenovia charged. Gantetsu stomped his foot. A 40-foot wall of stone erupted from the street, blocking her path. "It's toying with us," Kiba snarled. "It's just holding us here." "You are correct." The voice came from atop the stone wall. Naruto was standing there, his white coat billowing. "He's here," Kiba yelled, his voice a mix of fear and relief. "Xenovia, together, we take the king." They both shot forward, a pincer of speed and power. This was their specialty. Kiba, the fast, technical knight. Xenovia, the heavy, powerful knight. Naruto just dropped from the wall, landing softly between them. "You're both swordsmen," he said, pulling a single, 3-pronged kunai from his holster. "But you're not warriors." Xenovia lunged. Durandal aimed to cut him in half. "Shut up and die." Naruto didn't move. He let the massive holy sword, a weapon of legend, swing at his neck. At the last possible millisecond, he parried. He blocked Durandal's flat with his kunai. The sound was a deafening skreeee. The force of the blow should have shattered his arm, shattered his kunai, and killed him. Instead, a shroud of golden chakra on the kunai held. His sage mode precognition had met the blow at the perfect angle, deflecting 90% of the force. Xenovia's eyes were wide with disbelief. Her swing had left her completely open. Naruto elbowed her in the solar plexus. The crack of her armor breaking was sickening. The air exploded from her lungs. She crumpled, disarmed. "Xenovia!" Kiba yelled, appearing from behind in a blur of speed. His sword aimed at Naruto's kidney. Naruto's sage mode felt him. He didn't even turn. He ducked, Kiba's blade singing over his head. He spun, inside Kiba's guard, his hand chopping the knight's wrist. Kiba's sword clattered to the pavement. Before Kiba could even register the pain, Naruto was already moving, his leg sweeping Kiba's feet out from under him. Kiba fell, and Naruto was on top of him. The 3 prongs of his kunai pressed against Kiba's throat. Kiba was panting, his eyes wide with the sheer, terrifying speed of his defeat. It had taken less than 3 seconds. "You're fast, Kiba," Naruto said, his voice not even strained. "But you're a fencer. You fight to score points. I fight to end the fight. You attack where you think'll be. I attack where I know you will be." He pressed the kunai just slightly. House of Gremory, Knight, 1 retired. House of Gremory, Knight, 1 retired. "No. No. No." Rias was backing away, her team dissolving around her. Akeno was still in the sky. But she was now flying erratic, evasive patterns. "Akeno, what do you see?" Rias screamed. I see Kiri." Akeno's voice crackled. "The wolf girl. She's just watching me. I can't pin her down. And, oh my. What?" Issei demanded. "He's here," Akeno whispered. Naruto was standing on a skyscraper 2 blocks away, his KCM cloak now active, a blazing sun against the red sky. He was looking right at her. "Akeno Himahima," his voice carried, amplified by his chakra. "Your team is gone. Surrender." "Yufufu. Never," Akeno said, her voice shaking. "I am Rias's queen. I will not abandon her." She gathered her power. The sky crackled. "You're powerful, Naruto-kun. But can you handle this? The full power of the Thunder Priestess. A massive, swirling vortex of pure holy lightning. Gold and black, formed above her. It was her strongest attack, a devastating column of power. This will end you, she shrieked, and unleashed it. The column of energy lanced across the city and struck Naruto head-on. The explosion was blinding. The skyscraper he was on disintegrated, collapsing into a cloud of dust and pulverized concrete. Akeno panted, hovering in the air. I got him. No, a voice said, this time from right behind her. She spun. Naruto was floating in the air, his golden KCM cloak smoking slightly, but completely, utterly unharmed. The holy lightning, a power that could slay high-class devils, had not even scratched him. How did you? Akeno was stunned. Your lightning is powerful, Naruto said, his voice analytical. But it's conflicted. It's half holy, half demonic. It's fighting itself. It has no focus. He was in front of her now, so close she could see the black, Tomo-like seals on his golden coat. You're afraid, he said, his voice softening. You're afraid of your fallen angel blood. You're afraid of your father. You're afraid of this darkness inside you. So you overcompensate with the holy part. You're holding back. Akeno's eyes filled with tears. He saw it. He saw her. The one thing she kept hidden from everyone. You don't know, she whispered. I know what it's like to have something dark inside you, he said, his voice a low, somber rumble. Something everyone is afraid of. You can't fight it, Akeno. You have to balance it. He reached out, not with a fist, but with an open palm. He gently touched her chest, right over her heart. A pulse of his chakra, warm and golden, flowed into her. It wasn't an attack. It felt calming. It felt like acceptance. Akeno's power sputtered. Her bravado, her defenses, her lifetime of pain, it all just crumbled under that simple, accepting touch. She stared at him, her violet eyes wide, seeing him for the first time. He gave her a sad, small smile, and chopped her on the back of the neck. House of Gremory, Queen 1 retired. Silence. The city was now quiet. The clones were gone. The announcements had stopped. In the central plaza, Rias Gremory stood next to Issei Hyodo. They were all that was left. The broadcast screens in the stadium, and all over the underworld, showed the scoreboard. Uzumaki Peerage. 3 Gremory Peerage. 0. Every piece. Kaneko, Asia, Gasper, Hiba, Zenovia, Akeno. All of them retired. All of them gone. Naruto landed in the plaza, his KCM cloak burning bright. Soru, Gantetsu, and Kiri materialized behind him. His team was untouched. Not a single scratch on any of them. It was a perfect game. A shutout. Issei was shaking. His rage was gone. All that was left was a hollow, gaping terror. He looked at the scoreboard. He saw Akeno's name fade. Akeno. No. Hiba. Kaneko. Asia. You. Monster. He whispered at Naruto. You took them. I took nothing, Naruto said. His voice cold. You gave them away. Shut up. Issei roared, the rage coming back, his last, desperate defense. I'm the Red Dragon Emperor. I'll kill you. I'll get them back. Welsh Dragon. Balance Breaker. Issei was enveloped in red, draconic armor. He was all power, all rage. I am the strongest. He shot forward, a crimson comet, his fist cocked. Boost, 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 boost. His power level skyrocketed. Naruto didn't even flinch. He just raised his own hand, his KCM Sage mode flaring. Issei threw his punch. Naruto caught it. The sound of the impact was a deafening boom that shattered every window for a mile. A crater formed beneath their feet. Issei's eyes went wide in his helmet. His ultimate, boosted punch, had been caught. Your power is borrowed, Naruto said, his voice flat. He squeezed. The sound of Issei's gauntlet cracking echoed in the plaza. And you are weak. No, Issei screamed, trying to pull his arm back. He aimed his other hand. Dress break. Naruto kicked him. A simple, brutal, chakra-enhanced front kick to the chest. The breastplate of the scale mail imploded. Issei flew backward, skidding. Across the pavement for 100 yards, his armor sparking and breaking. "You're too strong," Issei wheezed, trying to get up. "Boost. It's not enough." Dividing wyvern. Too small. White dragons shot from his wings and flew at Naruto. Naruto held up 2 fingers. 2 minuscule, golden-tailed beast bomb needles, pinpricks of pure, condensed power, shot from his fingertips. They impacted the wyverns. The dragons didn't just pop. They were vaporized. Issei's mind broke. He had nothing. He had no more moves. No more tricks. No more power. "It's not fair," Issei sobbed, his armor dissolving from the damage. "It's not fair." Naruto was in front of him, a golden specter of judgment. He raised his hand, a perfect, golden Rasengan spinning to life in his palm. He wasn't aiming for Issei. He was aiming for the dragon gauntlet. "This is for them," Naruto said. He slammed the Rasengan into the boosted gear. Issei screamed as the sphere of pure chakra ground his sacred gear into a million pieces. The green gem shattering, the power breaking. The system registered the catastrophic, gear-destroying blow. House of Gremory, Pawn 8 retired. Issei Hyodo, his arm a bloody, mangled mess, fell to the ground, unconscious. Silence. Naruto's cloak receded. He was just Naruto. He stood over Issei's broken body, his face a mask of profound, weary sadness. Rias Gremory. He turned. She was the only one left. She was standing 20 feet away, her entire body shaking, tears streaming down her face. She looked at her fallen team. She looked at Issei, broken and defeated. She looked at the man who had just dismantled her entire world in less than 10 minutes. "It's over," Naruto said, his voice gentle. "No." She whispered. "No. It's not. They're my family." Her demonic power, her power of destruction, exploded from her body. It wasn't a calculated attack. It was a scream of grief. A black-red tsunami of pure unmaking erupted from her, disintegrating the ground. "The cars, the very air. You can't have them," she shrieked, unleashing everything she had. Naruto's KCM cloak flared back to life, the black seal spreading across his golden form. He didn't move. He didn't dodge. He just walked. He walked into the tidal wave of destruction. Rias watched, her eyes wide with madness, as her ultimate power, the power of Baal, washed over him. And did nothing. His chakra cloak, a gift from the Sage of Six Paths, a power that could create and destroy worlds, simply healed. The destruction was negated, erased, undone faster than her power could inflict it. It was like trying to empty the ocean with a paper cup. He walked through the storm, his golden form a beacon of absolute, immovable power. The storm of destruction died, her power spent. He stopped, inches from her face. Rias Gremory had nothing left. She was empty. She fell to her knees, her body trembling, her sobs the only sound in the ruined city. Naruto just looked down at her. No anger, no triumph, just pity. "It's over, Rias." She looked up, her face a ruin. She knew it was true. She had lost. She had lost everything. She choked, the word tearing from her throat. The most painful word she would ever speak. "I forfeit." The match end siren blared, a mournful, final wail. "Winner. Uzumaki Peerage." The announcement flashed across the screens. The stadium was silent. The underworld was silent. And then, a new sound. A sound that was quiet, but echoed in the souls of every devil watching. It was the sound of magic. The sound of the system. It was the sound of chains. A flash of crimson light. The 8 Gremory red pawn pieces erupted from Issei's body. The knight, bishop, and queen pieces erupted from Rias's chest. They hung in the air, chains of black, magical energy wrapping around them. The Gremory crest on each piece cracked and flaked away. Then, the chains pulled. The pieces shot across the plaza and slammed into Naruto's chest. He didn't flinch. He just accepted them. A surge of new, foreign energy filled him. The magic settled. The contracts were rewritten. Rias Gremory, who had been kneeling, suddenly felt the last of her connections snap. Her link to Kiba, her link to Akeno, her link to Kaneko, her link to Issei. They were gone. It was a physical, tearing pain, a spiritual amputation. She was no longer their king. She was nothing. The backlash of 8 broken contracts hit Issei, even in his unconsciousness. His body arched off the ground. His eyes snapped open. He saw the winner sign. He saw Rias, on her knees, empty. He felt hollow. He looked at his arm. The boosted gear was gone. He looked at Rias. The feeling, his connection to her, it was gone. He finally, truly, understood what he had done. He looked at his hands. The instruments of his arrogance. And Issei Hyodo, the Red Dragon Emperor, the Oppai Dragon, the hero of the underworld, threw his head back and screamed. It was not a roar. It was a sound of pure, abject, soul-shattering despair. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. The Spoils of Victory. Issei's scream was a raw, jagged tear in the fabric of the universe. It was the sound of a soul breaking. It echoed in the vast, tomb-like silence of the stadium, a monument to his own catastrophic arrogance. Rias Grimori was on her knees, her body hollow. The magical backlash of the transfer was a physical violation. She felt them, the tethers of her soul, her connections to Akeno, Kiba, Kaneko, Asia, Zenobia, Gasper, and Issei. She felt them snap, one by one, a series of agonizing, spiritual amputations. They were gone. Her links, her bonds, her family, severed. She was no longer their king. She was just Rias, and Rias was nothing. Naruto stood, the weight of his victory settling on him like a shroud. He hadn't just won, he'd taken. The surge of the contract magic was a cold, alien fire in his chest. 8 pawn pieces, 2 knights, 2 bishops, 1 queen, 1 rook, 16 lives. 16 foreign energy signatures had just been forcibly bound to his own. It wasn't a triumph. It was a burden. Issei's scream died, replaced by a choking, gasping sob. He scrambled to his feet. His mind utterly fractured, his gaze fixed on Naruto. His arm was a mangled ruin, the shattered remnants of the boosted gear dripping blood and sparking with dead energy. You, he hissed, his voice a stranger's. You took them. You gave them back. He had no power. He had no armor. He was just a boy, broken and enraged. He lunged, his one good arm cocked for a pathetic, human punch. Naruto didn't even raise a hand. He just watched him come, his eyes filled with a profound, weary sadness. He was prepared to just stand there, to let this broken child vent his grief. He never got the chance. Partner, stop. The voice was deep, draconic, and utterly weary. It came from the shattered green gem on Issei's ruined arm. It was Diedrag, the Welsh dragon, and his voice was not a roar, but a sigh of profound disappointment. Issei froze, his fist inches from Naruto's face. Diedrag, we have to. He did nothing. Issei Hyodo, the dragon's voice echoed, for all the stadium to hear. He won. He won by the rules you invoked. He won by the wager you proposed. This is not his failure. This is yours. The dragon's judgment was more devastating than any punch. It was the final betrayal. No, Issei whimpered. No, Diedrag. Not you, too. Enough. The single word was not loud, but it had the mass of a collapsing star. Sears X Lucy, Fair and Ajuka Beelzebub stood in the center of the plaza, their faces grim. Sears X's jovial mask was gone, replaced by the cold, absolute authority of a great Satan. He looked at Issei, and his gaze was one of pure, disappointed fury. A wave of his hand, a pulse of the power of destruction, so subtle and so absolute, washed over Issei. Issei was frozen, paralyzed, his arms still raised. Issei Hyodo, Sears X said, his voice carrying across the silent arena. You have, by your own childish pride, brought disgrace to a great house. You have cost Lord Grimori his standing, his honor, and his entire peerage. You are hereby stripped of your rank. Your title is forfeit. You will be placed in custodial care until the Grimori family, and Lord Uzumaki, decide your fate. No, Issei screamed, his voice the only thing he could move. No, please. Rias, I'm sorry, Rias. 2 guards in Lucifer-crested armor appeared. They grabbed the paralyzed Issei by the arms and began to drag him away. He was still screaming, his voice raw, pleading for the girl who couldn't even bring herself to look at him. Sears X watched him go, his face stone. He then turned to Naruto. Congratulations is in order. Lord Uzumaki. Though the circumstances are regrettable, there is nothing to congratulate, Naruto said, his voice flat. He looked at Rias, who was still a broken statue on the pavement. What happens to her? Quote, she is no longer a king, Ajuka murmured, his eyes on the magical signatures swirling around Naruto. The system is fascinating. It has completely transferred all fealty. She is free and disinherited. A car is waiting to take her back to the Grimoire estate. She is no longer a part of this. Rias flinched at the words. No longer a part of this. She was an outcast. She slowly, agonizingly, got to her feet. She looked at Naruto, her eyes red, swollen, and utterly empty. There was no hatred. There was no anger. There was just a void. She turned, a ghost in a Grimoire uniform, and walked away, not one person in the stadium saying a word. The retired room was stark white, and it smelled like ozone and antiseptic. Akeno Himehima's eyes fluttered open. Her neck ached where he had struck her. She sat up, her mind clear. Too clear. She felt light. She felt empty. The bond, the warm, steady, crimson link that had connected her to Rias since the day she was saved, was gone. It was a cold, hollow ache, like a missing limb. Akeno. She looked over. Hiba was sitting up, his hand over his heart, his face pale and confused. I can't feel her. I can't feel Rias Bushu. Neither can I, Zenobia said, her voice rough. She was already on her feet, Durandal's sheath in her hand. But the sword felt heavier, less responsive. What is happening? Kaneko was sitting in the corner, her knees to her chest, her face buried. She was trembling. Asia was in the other corner, just weeping, her sobs silent and terrified. The door slid open. Rias Grimoire stood in the doorway. She was leaning against the frame, as if she didn't have the strength to stand. Her face was a ruin. Rias. Akeno started, relief flooding her. What happened? You won, right? You must have. He won, Rias whispered, her voice broken. Issei wagered. All of us. The room went cold. Hiba's face went from pale to sheet white. He understood. He understood what that hollow feeling was. What? It was a conquest wager. Rias choked, fresh tears carving paths through the dust on her cheeks. He won. He took you. He took all of you. He owns you. The word owns landed like a bomb. No, Asia whispered, her hands flying to her mouth. No, Lady Rias, please. So, Hiba said, his voice dangerously quiet. He stood up, and for the first time, Akeno saw not loyalty in his eyes, but a cold, deep, profound contempt. You let him, our king, you let that idiot, gamble our lives. I had no choice, Rias cried. The honor of the house, he trapped me. Honor. Hiba's laugh was a bitter, terrible sound. What honor is there in this? You saved me from the Holy Sword Project. You saved all of us. You called us your family. And then, you put us on a betting table. You are nothing like him. He was looking at the door, but Rias knew he wasn't talking about Issei. He was talking about Naruto. The main door on the far side of the room slid open. Naruto Uzumaki stepped inside. The tension became a physical, suffocating thing. He was not in his KCM cloak. He was in his simple black shirt and pants. His white coat gone. Soru and Gantetsu flanked him, their expressions unreadable. They were his pieces. And now, so were they. Asia shrieked, a small sound of pure terror, and hid behind Zenobia. Hiba and Zenobia stood, forming a pointless, powerless defensive line. Akeno just watched. She watched this man who had so thoroughly, so intimately, dismantled them. Naruto's eyes swept the room, taking in their fear, their anger, their despair. He looked at Rias, who was still crumpled in the other doorway. The match is over, Grimoire, he said, his voice not unkind, but firm. Your business here is done. Searsex has arranged for your transport. Rias looked at him, then gave one last, broken, agonized look at the peerage that was no longer hers. At Akeno's betrayed face, at Kiba's cold hatred, at Asia's terror. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Then she turned, and was gone. The door slid shut, leaving them alone with their new master. Naruto stepped fully into the room. He didn't approach them. He just stood, his hands clasped loosely behind his back. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," he said, his voice echoing in the sterile room. "By the laws of your world, the magical contracts that bound you to Rias Grimori have been transferred. You are now my peerage." Kiba's hand twitched toward a sword he couldn't summon. "So, what now? You drag us back to your dungeon. Put us in chains." Naruto's gaze settled on him. It was heavy. "This was not my wish. I take no pleasure in this. What Issei Hyodo did, what Rias Grimori allowed, was an abomination. People are not property. They are not prizes." He took a slow breath, as if steeling himself. "The magic is real. You are bound to me. I cannot change that, but I will not be your master. I don't own you. I never will." He looked at each of them. At Zenovia's pragmatic suspicion, at Asia's quiet terror, at Kaneko, who was now peeking out from behind Akeno. "You are under my protection now," he said, his voice absolute. "That is what this means. That is all it means. You will be housed at my estate. You will be safe. Your lives are your own. What you do with them is your choice. I will not command you. I will not use you. But I will protect you. That is my only vow." The room was silent. They were stunned. They had expected a tyrant, a gloating victor. They got this, a somber man offering protection. Why? It was Akeno. Her voice was surprisingly steady, her head tilted. She stepped out from in front of Kaneko. Her forced smile was gone. Her face was an open, curious, calculating mask. Naruto stopped. "Why what? Why did you do it like that?" she asked, her voice low. "The match. You didn't just beat us. You lectured Kiba. You saw my conflict." She blushed, a faint, dark crimson. "You analyzed Kaneko's senjutsu. You dismantled Issei's mind before you broke his body. You weren't fighting. You were judging us." Naruto was silent for a long, heavy moment. He looked at the floor, his thoughts 1,000 miles, 1,000 worlds, away. He remembered other teams. He remembered Team 7. He remembered Sasuke, broken by pride. He remembered Sakura, trapped by devotion. He looked back at Akeno, and his blue eyes held a universe of pain and experience that she couldn't possibly comprehend. "Because you called yourselves a family," he said, his voice quiet. "But you weren't. You were a broken, dysfunctional team, being led by an arrogant child and a king who was too afraid to be a leader. And in my world, that's how families get killed." He turned. "Soru will show you to the transport circle. We'll talk more in the morning." He walked out, leaving them to grapple with his words. He hadn't just won them. He had exposed them, and in the ruins of their old life, he had just laid the first, unwelcome brick of a new one. In a dark, opulent study in the Grimori castle, Zeodicus Grimori, Rias's father, swept a priceless vase from his desk. It shattered against the wall. "Ruined," he roared, his face purple with rage. "Disinherited. My daughter, my heiress, cast aside. My peerage, the legacy of my house. Stolen. All of it. Lost, because of that filthy, degenerate, dragon-obsessed pawn." "Zeodicus, your rage is useless," his wife, Venelana, said, her voice a whip crack of cold fury. She stood by the window, a picture of perfect, icy control. "And you," Zeodicus spun on Searzex, who was standing by the cold fireplace. "You sanctioned it. You let this Uzumaki, this anomaly, tear my house apart. You were the Satan. You could have stopped it." "I sanctioned a match that your daughter, the king, accepted," Searzex said, his voice dangerously level. "I upheld the laws you hold so dear, Zeodicus. The fault lies with Issei Hyodo, and with Rias, for failing to control him." "So what now?" Venelana cut in, her eyes narrowing. "This sage king now holds the Grimori pieces. He holds Akeno. He holds Kiba. He is a political catastrophe." "No, Venelana," Searzex said, his voice dropping, and the shadows in the room seemed to deepen. "He is not a catastrophe. He is, perhaps, our only hope." Zeodicus scoffed. "Hope? He's a pariah, A new blood. Do you think this was about a game? Searsex's power flared, just for a second, and the room turned to ice. That fan. Who goaded Issei into the wager? The analyst, Livia. She vanished from the stadium seconds after Rias accepted. She doesn't exist. She was a construct. A probe. He turned, his eyes burning with a red light that was not friendly. Ajuka has been tracking the energy signature. It's the same one from the tremors we've been ignoring. He's calling it Janus. The Weaver of Ends. It's an entity, Zeoticus. Older than us, older than the war, and it just used Issei's pride to tear your house apart, to test Naruto's strength. The Grimoires were, for the first time, pale with real fear. What does it want? Venelana whispered. It wants to unmake this failed tapestry, Searsex quoted, his voice grim. It's drawn to Naruto's power like a shark to blood. I didn't just sanction a match. Zeoticus. I consolidated our greatest asset. Naruto Uzumaki is now a king with a full, high-class peerage. A peerage he didn't choose, but one he won. He is now, the front line of a war you didn't even know had begun. The teleportation circle glowed with a cool, blue light, fading to leave the former Grimoire peerage standing in the genkan of a house that was utterly alien to them. It was a sprawling, modern traditional Japanese estate. Dark wood, polished floors, and sliding shoji screens. It was minimalist, clean, and cold. They were all holding luggage they had been allowed to retrieve. They looked lost, captives in a foreign land. Kiri, Naruto's wolf pawn, was leaning against a support beam in the shadows, her arms crossed. Her amber eyes, slit-pupilled, watched them with open, animalistic suspicion. She was a guard, and they were prisoners. Naruto was standing in the main hall. He had changed into simple gray sweatpants and a black t-shirt. He looked like a normal man. Not a monster, not a king. He just looked tired. It's late, he said, his voice flat. Soru will show you to the guest wing. There are enough rooms. Pick whichever you want. We'll talk in the morning. He turned and walked down a dark hallway, disappearing from sight. They were left in the cold, silent entryway, bathed in the pale light of the moon from the garden. Soru, his silver-haired knight, just stood, her face a pale, beautiful, and utterly emotionless mask. Asia was trembling, clinging to Zenovia's arm. Kiba stared down the hall where Naruto had gone, his fists clenched. Zenovia was pragmatic, adjusting her luggage, her mind already moving to survival. Kaneko had vanished. She'd found a dark corner, as she always did. Akano Himahima was the only one who seemed calm. She looked around the silent, beautiful, empty house. She looked at the suspicious Kiri, at the doll-like Soru, and at the empty hallway where their new king had disappeared. She wasn't scared. She wasn't angry. She was, for the first time in a very long time, intrigued. What kind of man, she thought, a slow, dangerous, and unreadable smile finally touching her lips, is this? Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6. Forging New Bonds. Dawn at the Uzumaki estate was a cold, sharp, and silent affair. Kiba Yuto hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in a room that was larger than his old apartment. All tatami mats and bare, dark wood, with one wall made entirely of glass overlooking a meticulously raked Zen garden. It was a prison of minimalist taste. He couldn't stand the silence. The Grimoire estate had been loud, full of Issei's yelling, Asia's laughter, and Rias's warm presence. This place was a tomb. It was the home of a man who owned people but clearly didn't like them. He rose before the sun, his body thrumming with a restless, toxic energy. He was a knight, a blade, and he felt dull, caged. He needed to move. He followed his instincts, moving through the silent, dark wood corridors, his feet padding softly on the polished floors. He passed the doll-like Soru, who was standing motionless in a hallway, seemingly on guard. She didn't acknowledge him. He didn't acknowledge her. He found it at the back of the estate. A dojo. It wasn't a magical training circle or a high-tech simulation room. It was an old-world, open-air dojo, its wooden floor scarred and dark with age. Beyond it, a training ground with sparring posts, a sand pit, and a small, crashing waterfall. This wasn't a devil's training ground. This was a warrior's. He wasn't alone. Thwack, Thwack, thwack. The sound was sharp, brutal. Kaneko Tuju was there, her small frame a blur of motion. She was attacking a thick, scarred wooden post, her fists wrapped in simple white cloth. She wasn't just hitting it. She was trying to obliterate it. Each blow, infused with her raw senjutsu, sent splinters of wood flying. She was fighting back her fear and her rage the only way she knew how. Kiba leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. You're going to break it. Thwack. A larger chunk of the post flew off. Good, she panted, not looking at him. It's ugly. He let the silence stretch. Listening to the waterfall. Where are the others? Asia is in her room, praying, Kaneko muttered, her strikes slowing as she tired. Zenobia. She's scouting the perimeter, she said. Akano. I don't know. She's weird. She was humming. Kiba repeated, his voice flat. He felt a sting of betrayal. How could Akano be anything but furious? They're not like us, Kiba, Kaneko said. Finally stopping. She was trembling, her small body slick with sweat. We're just the muscle. We're the ones who were supposed to fight. And we lost, he finished, the words like ash in his mouth. And he didn't even try. She looked at her hands, the wrapping split, her knuckles bleeding. He just took us apart. Like we were children. Your stance is all wrong. The voice came from behind them, so quiet and so sudden that Kiba exploded into motion. He spun, his hand instinctively flying to his hip, his sword birth, flaring to life. Naruto Uzumaki caught his wrist. It wasn't a slap, it wasn't a block, his fingers just closed. Kiba's magic sputtered, his summoned blade dissolving into motes of light. The speed, the anticipation. Kiba hadn't even seen him move. Naruto was dressed in the same simple black pants and shirt, and he was holding two Bakken, wooden training swords. He let go of Kiba's wrist and looked at Kaneko, his face unreadable in the gray dawn light. You're punching with your arms, he said, his voice calm. All your power is in your shoulders. You're trying to force your senjutsu out, but you're fighting yourself. Shut up, Kaneko snarled, her Nekomata ears flattening. Don't analyze me. She lunged, her fist cocked, aiming to put him through the wall. It was a fast, furious, desperate attack. Naruto didn't step back, he flowed. He stepped inside her lunge, his hand brushing her elbow, the other gently cupping her shoulder. It looked like a dance. He used her own momentum to spin her, her punch sailing harmlessly into the air. And she stumbled, her balance completely broken. She spun back, her eyes wide with humiliation and rage. You're a Nekomata, he said, as if she hadn't just tried to kill him. You have a natural, perfect affinity for the world's energy. Most people have to force a connection. You're already connected. But you're afraid of it. You're treating it like a flood. Just opening the gate and letting it rage. It's sloppy, it's crude, and it's shortening your lifespan. Kaneko froze. What did you say? I'm a sage, he said, tapping his own chest. I can feel it. The energy you're using is tearing your body apart, bit by bit. Rias Gramori, your king, she gave you a purpose, but she never trained you. She didn't know how. He met her gaze, his blue eyes holding no malice. What you're using isn't real senjutsu. It's a cheap, brute force imitation. I can teach you the real thing. I can teach you how to balance it. How to make it a part of you. Not a weapon you're barely holding onto. Kaneko was shaking. He had just diagnosed her entire life, her greatest secret, her deepest fear. She wasn't just a powerhouse. She was a time bomb. And he was offering to defuse her. Naruto turned from the stunned Nekomata and looked at Kiba. He tossed him one of the Bakken. Kiba caught it on instinct. Naruto said, you're a knight. You're supposed to be fast. Kiba's rage, which had been simmering, now boiled over. The humiliation of the match, the loss of his king, the shame, it all focused on the man in front of him. He gripped the wooden sword, and his aura, his speed, flared. You want to see fast? Kiba hissed. He vanished. He was a blue-black blur, appearing at Naruto's side, his Bakken aimed for the ribs, a strike meant to shatter bone. Clack. Naruto hadn't moved his feet. He'd just pivoted, his own Bakken blocking the strike with a casual, almost lazy, precision. Kiba growled and attacked again. And again. And again. He was a storm of speed. He was everywhere, his Bakken a blur, striking from a dozen angles a second. He was, by any measure, one of the fastest knights in the underworld. And every single strike was blocked. Clack, 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 clack. Naruto was a mountain. He wasn't faster than Kiba. He didn't need to be. He was just better. His feet were planted. His movements were minimal, economical, precise. He was parrying Kiba's hurricane of blows with simple, efficient blocks, his body flowing like water, his gaze never leaving Kiba's eyes. Kiba was pouring sweat. He was wasting all his energy, and his opponent wasn't even moving. This is impossible, Kiba roared, and he put everything into one last, desperate feint. He faked a high strike, then dropped, sweeping his Bakken at Naruto's ankles. Naruto didn't fall for it. He didn't even block. He just stepped. He stepped on Kiba's sweeping sword, pinning it to the floor. Kiba's eyes went wide. He was open. Naruto's Bakken tapped him, softly, on the forehead. Tap. It was over. Kiba Yuto stood, panting, his entire body trembling with exertion and shame. He had just been defeated, again, by a man who hadn't even broken a sweat. You lost, Naruto said, his voice flat. He stepped off the wooden sword. You are incredibly fast, Kiba. You're a brilliant duelist, a fencer. You fight to win points. He walked a slow circle around the frozen knight. But you're not a warrior. You're waiting for an opening. You're waiting for a mistake. Your fighting style is built around an opponent. A true warrior, he doesn't find openings. He makes them. He stopped in front of Kiba. Your footwork, it's predictable. You put all your weight on your back foot before you burst. You're broadcasting your intentions. Your breathing is ragged. You're fast, but you're loud. You fight to impress. I fight to end it. He raised his Bakken and pointed it at Kiba's heart. In a real fight, you'd be dead. Twice. Kiba had no words. He had just been dissected. This wasn't a master. This was a grandmaster. From the Ingawa, a soft, melodic giggle broke the tension. My, and here I thought I was the only one who enjoyed a good, hard lesson, Naruto-kun. Quote, Akano Himehime was sitting there, one leg elegantly crossed over the other, a cup of tea in her hand. Asia was peeking out from behind her, her face pale with terror. He's just toying with them, Asia whispered. Oh, no, dear, Akano said, her eyes gleaming with a light that was both dangerous and fascinated. He's not toying, he's teaching. Before Kiba could respond, before Kaneko could process the offer, it happened. A sound like a thunderclap. A violent, shrieking boom that shook the entire estate. A wave of concussive force exploded from the front gate, shattering every window on that side of the house. A spray of red light. The estate's defensive seals, Naruto's personal Fuinjutsu barriers, were shattering. Asia screamed. Kiba and Neko instinctively moved to Akano's side, forming a defensive line. Intruders. Kiri, Naruto's wolf pawn, yelled, appearing on the dojo roof, her claws extended. Dozens of them. They're wearing Grimoire-allied crests. Naruto's face, which had been the calm, patient mask of a sensei, changed. It went cold. His blue eyes became chips of Arctic ice. The pressure that rolled off him was immense. They're fools, he snarled. A dozen figures in crimson and gold armor, the colors of House Glaciolabalas, a minor but famously proud Grimoire-allied family, burst through the ruined gate and into the main garden. We are here, their leader, a tall, arrogant-looking devil, bellowed. Grimoire Peerage, we are here to liberate you. Stand aside. This upstart thief will pay for his insult to Lord Zeoticus. Kiba, Akano, Kaneko, and Zenovia, who had just burst from the trees, sword in hand, all froze. This was it. This was their rescue. They're out. The Grimoire allies were here. They could just step aside. They could be free. They could go home. Kiba took a half step back, his eyes meeting Akano's. This was their chance. Kiba. Naruto's voice was not a request. It was a command. It was the voice of a cage. Of a general. It cut through the chaos like a blade, and Kiba's body instinctively reacted, his head snapping to attention. You're a knight, Naruto ordered, not even looking at him. You and Zenovia. Front gate. You're the fastest. Hold that bottleneck. Do not let them get a foothold in the garden. Your teamwork is sloppy. Fix it. Buy me 30 seconds. Kiba was stunned. The sheer, absolute authority. He wasn't asking for help. He was directing his assets. He looked at Xenovia. She just shrugged, a wild, sharp grin splitting her face. He's not wrong. Our teamwork is sloppy. Let's go. On it. Kiba yelled, and the two of them blasted toward the gate, a blur of speed and holy power, slamming into the first wave of intruders. Akeno. Naruto barked. Here, she called, her voice electric. Already rising into the air, her wings spread. You're the queen. Air superiority. They have mages in the back. I want suppressing fire. Holy lightning. Keep them grounded. Don't let them cast. Now. Quote. With pleasure. Akeno giggled, a true, joyous, sadistic giggle. The sky crackled, and a storm of gold and black lightning rained down on the intruders' back line. Kaneko. You're with Gantetsu. You're the close quarters defense. Protect the house. Asia. Stay here. Triage. Kiri. Soru. You're with me. We're cutting off the head. The former Grimoire Peerage, who moments before had been confused, broken, and leaderless, were now moving as a single, cohesive, lethal unit. They were following his orders without thought, without question. Because his orders were perfect. The intruders were stunned. Their rescuees were fighting them. And fighting them with a terrifying, coordinated efficiency they had never possessed under Rias Grimoire. What is this? Treachery. The enemy leader roared. No, Naruto said, appearing in front of him in a flicker of golden KCM light, a Rasengan already spinning in his hand. This is training. He slammed the Rasengan into the leader's breastplate. The sound of the impact, and the armor shattering, was the last sound of the battle. The entire skirmish was over in 45 seconds. The intruders were all on the ground, groaning. Bound in chakra chains. The garden was a wreck. Kiba and Xenovia were panting, standing back to back at the gate, covered in dust. Akeno landed, her hair wild, her face flushed with excitement. Kaneko and Gantetsu stood over a pile of unconscious mages. They had worked together. Naruto's golden cloak faded. He stood over the bound, groaning leader of the Glacia Labala's team. He looked annoyed. This, he said to the man, is what arrogance gets you. You picked a fight you couldn't win, for a cause that wasn't yours, for people who didn't ask for your help. He turned and looked at his new, combined peerage. They were all staring at him, a new, complex emotion in their eyes. It wasn't just fear. It wasn't just anger. It was awe. He wasn't a king who sat on a throne. He was a general who fought on the front line. Naruto just sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Kiba, Xenovia, you overextended twice. You almost let one slip past to flank Akeno. Akeno, your suppression was good. But you wasted 40% of your energy on overkill. Kaneko, good job staying put. He was debriefing them. Kiba opened his mouth to argue, but he had overextended. He and Xenovia had gotten sloppy. He couldn't even argue. Naruto started walking back to the house, stepping over the bound intruders. Asia, check their wounds. We're not killing them. Kiri, call Searzex. Tell him to come get his trash. The rest of you. He stopped at the Ingawa and looked back at them, his face once again the calm sensei. We'll work on your teamwork tomorrow. Dawn. Don't be late. He disappeared into the house. Akeno Himahima watched him go, and this time, her smile was slow, genuine, and utterly captivated. Chapter 6 End. Chapter 7. The Filth and the Fury. The dojo was a ruin of shattered wood and splintered support beams. In the center of the devastation, the intruders were bound, back to back, in gleaming, golden chains of chakra. Their leader, Lord Corvus of House Glacia Labalas, was on his knees. His arrogant face bruised and swollen. He spat a glob of blood onto the polished floor at Naruto's feet. You will pay for this, thief. You think you can assault a great house. You are not a great house. A new voice, cold and final, cut through the air. Searzex Lucifer stood in the ruined doorway, his red hair a stark warning. He was not in his usual casual attire. He wore the formal, severe black and crimson uniform of the Satan. You are a vassal house. And you just attacked the estate of a fellow king, unprovoked. This is a declaration of war, Lord Corvus. Corvus's bravado faltered, his face going pale. I acted to liberate the Grimoire pieces. Lord Zeoticus will. Lord Zeoticus Grimoire has already, and very publicly, disavowed you, Searsex said, stepping into the room. Kiba and Akeno, who had been standing guard, tensed. The power rolling off Searsex was oppressive. He has declared you a rogue element, acting out of foolish pride. You are alone. The fight drained out of Corvus. He slumped in his bonds. No. He promised. Naruto, who had been silently watching, stepped forward. He's a fool, Searsex. But he's not this stupid. He knelt in front of Corvus, his blue eyes sharp and analytical. You knew my strength. You knew I defeated Baal. You knew I just crushed the entire Grimoire Peerage. You knew my barriers were strong. You and your dozen men, you walked in here to die. Why? Corvus just sneered. Pride. Something a gutter rat like you wouldn't understand. No, Naruto said, his voice flat. Not pride. You had help. He didn't wait for an answer. He placed his palm on Corvus's forehead. The devil flinched, but Naruto's grip was iron. He closed his eyes, his own golden chakra sinking into the man's system. He wasn't reading a mind. He was feeling the energy. He saw it. A faint, cold, intricate trace. It was like a spider's web, sticky and alien, woven deep into the man's magical core. It was disgusting. Naruto ripped his hand back as if he'd been burned, a snarl on his face. What is that? It's all over him. It's cold. Searsex's face went grim. He looked at Akeno and Kiba, his gaze heavy. The same signature Ajuka has been tracking. The one from the stadium. Janus, the weaver of ends. He looked back at Corvus, his eyes now filled with a cold pity. He was a puppet. He was never meant to win. He was a probe. A probe for what? Kiba asked, his hand on his sword. Naruto stood, his gaze turning to Kiba, then Akeno. For us. He was sent to test my defenses. And, his eyes narrowed. To test your loyalty. To see if you'd turn on me. The realization hit Akeno and Kiba like a physical blow. The rescue was a test. And they had, without thinking, fought for their new king. No, Corvus suddenly roared, his eyes rolling back. No, I am Lord Corvus. I am. The weave must be cleansed. The thread must be pulled. No, he began to convulse. A dark, intricate sigil, a circle split into two faces, one weeping, one laughing, burned itself onto his throat. It was a brand, and a bomb. He's self-destructing. Akeno yelled, a ball of lightning forming in her hand. Don't, Naruto commanded. It's not demonic. It's unmaking him. He slammed his hand onto Corvus's chest, golden Fuinjutsu seal spreading like wildfire, trying to contain the energy. Five-pronged seal. He was too late. Corvus didn't explode. He imploded. The black and white sigil flared, and the man dissolved. His armor, his flesh, his very soul, turned into a cloud of fine, black and white dust. The chakra chains fell to the floor, empty. Silence. Kiba stared at the pile of dust, his stomach churning. Gods, he just erased him. Janus, Searsex said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. This is an act of infiltration and assassination. This is a war. He looked at Naruto. He's testing you, Lord Uzumaki. He sees you. He sees you as the anomaly. Naruto's face was a mask of cold fury. He left a trail, faint, but I can feel it. That filth. I can track it. Then you must, Searsex said. I cannot move openly. It would cause a panic. This must be handled quietly. You are a king, but you are also an unknown. You have no political ties. You are the perfect scalpel. Naruto nodded. He turned to his new pieces. Kiba, king. Kiba answered, the word coming out sharp. Natural. You're fast. You're my eyes. You run point. Understood. Akeno. You fufu. She giggled, the sound a little strained. Ready, king. You're my cannon. Your power. That mix of holy and demonic. It might be the only thing that can hurt this stuff. You're my heavy support. He looked at them, not as captives, but as assets. As shinobi. This isn't a game. This is a hunt. We leave in 5. They didn't question. They didn't hesitate. They just nodded. For the first time, they weren't Rimori's. They weren't Uzumaki's. They were his. The trail led them to a place that had been erased from maps. A sector of the underworld that had been a casualty of the Great War, a graveyard of forgotten castles and salt-caked earth. The blood-red sky here was darker, bruised purple, and the air was cold. Kiba was a blur, moving from shadow to shadow, his speed a whisper. Akeno was a dark shape in the purple sky, her senses, a mix of devil and angel, scanning for threats. Naruto was the center, walking, his sage mode active. He was a living sensor, his head tilted as he followed the faint, cold scent of Janice's energy. It's here, Kiba's voice came, low and urgent, from the ruins of a collapsed cathedral ahead. The energy, it's thick. The whole place feels dead. It's a trap, Akeno's voice echoed from above. I sense 1, no, 0 life signs. But the power is immense. He's not alive, Naruto said, stepping into the ruined courtyard. He's a vessel. In the center of the cathedral's shattered nave, a figure stood, waiting. He was dressed in the tattered robes of a priest, but his flesh was like old, gray parchment. One side of his face was fused with a black and white porcelain mask, the weeping and laughing sigil of Janus. He was an anchor, a high-level stray who had given himself to this new, cold god. He turned, his one, milky white eye landing on Naruto. The anomaly, his voice rasped, a sound of dry leaves and cracking bone. His gaze moved to Kiba. The broken knight, so much rage. You hide it well. And then, his gaze, his contempt, landed on Akeno, who was descending from the sky, lightning crackling at her fingertips. And the filth, the priest hissed. Akeno's good humor, the thrill of the hunt, vanished. It was like a physical blow. Her aura sputtered. What did you call me? A himahima, the priest whispered, savoring the words. A barakiel, a stain, half devil, half angel, all abomination. A child of sin and betrayal. You do not deserve to exist in any world. You are a tear in the weave. You are filth. It was her deepest, darkest, most secret shame. The word she had heard whispered her entire life. The reason for her sadism, her pain, her forced smiles. Akeno snapped. Die, she shrieked, her voice cracking. All her training, her control, vanished. She unleashed a torrent of pure, unadulterated holy lightning, a column of power that lit the dark world. The priest just raised one hand. A barrier of the same black and white unmaking energy appeared. It didn't block her lightning. It devoured it. The chaotic, conflicted energy of holy and demonic was consumed in an instant. Your power is a lie, the priest rasped, it's just as conflicted as your blood. You are as weak, and as whorish, as your human mother. Enough. The word was not a yell. It was a growl. It was a sound that did not belong in a human, or devil, throat. It shook the stones of the cathedral. Akeno and Kiba froze. They looked at Naruto. He was in sage mode, his eyes the cross-slitted orange. But the orange was now bleeding. The golden chakra around him was being overridden by a bubbling, sizzling, malevolent red. His pupils were no longer just crosses, they were slitted, like a fox's. Kurama's rage, his own protective fury, was erupting. Naruto vanished. He didn't use a jutsu. He just moved. He was a streak of red and gold, and he appeared directly in front of the priest. He didn't punch. He didn't use a Rasengan. He just grabbed. His hand, wreathed in that terrifying, bubbling red chakra, closed around the priest's throat, lifting him clear off the ground. The red chakra burned, and the priest's unmaking energy sizzled against it, unable to gain a foothold. Naruto's voice was a low, demonic, terrifying rumble. It was Kurama's voice and his own, fused into one. You can talk about me. You can try to kill me. I don't care. He squeezed, and the sound of cracking bone echoed in the courtyard. But you, ever, talk about her, like that again, and I will burn you from existence. I will find every thread of your soul, and I will tear it apart. Akeno was frozen in the air. Her heart was hammering. Rias would have scolded her for losing control. Issei W. Old have made a lewd joke about her being fiery. Naruto had just threatened to commit soul murder for her. For filth like her. The priest just gurgled, a sick, wet laugh. He looked past Naruto's shoulder, at Akeno. And his eyes were full of triumph. Yes, yes, he choked. The anomaly feels. It rages. The thread, it pulls so hard. The anomaly has torn the tapestry, and now, the weaver of ends will unmake this failed world. You've talked enough, Naruto snarled. He prepared to incinerate him. But the priest was faster. The Janus sigil on his face cracked wide open. For the weaver, he exploded. But it wasn't a normal explosion. It was an implosion. A vortex of pure, unmaking, Clipoth energy erupted, not outwards, but inwards, centered on Naruto. It was a trap, a void designed to erase the anomaly. Kiba, Akeno. Get out, now, Naruto roared. He shoved Kiba back with a chakra arm. King, Kiba yelled, tumbling. The vortex of darkness and anti-light consumed Naruto, tearing at his sage mode. At his very existence. Naruto. Akeno screamed, her voice raw with a terror she had never felt before. She saw him, on one knee in the center of the void, the red chakra burning, but failing. And then, he roared. It was the roar of a beast, of a god, of a man who refused to be erased. I will not fade. A sun ignited in the center of the void. A tsunami of pure, golden, life-affirming chakra exploded outwards. It was not KCM. It was his full Biju mode, a colossal, burning gold avatar of a fox, a being of pure, unadulterated life. The golden chakra, the power of the sage of six paths, struck the black and white unmaking energy. It was a clash of concepts. Deletion versus creation. And creation won. The golden light vaporized the Clipoth trap. It healed the tear in reality. The collapsing cathedral was disintegrated. The dark clouds above were burned away, and for a moment, a golden, warm sun shone in the underworld. The light faded. The avatar was gone. The church was a glassy, shallow crater. Naruto was standing in the center, breathing heavily, his KCM cloak smoking and fading from his body. He was furious. He was alive. And he was alone. No, not alone. A shadow detached itself from the ruins. Kiba stood, his sword drawn, his face pale but resolute. Report, King. Hostile. Neutralized. Naruto nodded, his breathing steadying. He was a bomb. He was just a message. Naruto. Akeno landed, her black wings wrapping around her, then retracting. She was shaking. She looked at him, her violet eyes wide, filled with a complex, dizzying storm of emotions. Fear, awe, and gratitude. You okay? He asked, his voice returning to normal. You didn't have to do that, she whispered, her voice trembling. Do what? Fight the exploding zombie priest? No, she said, taking a step closer. Defend me. Get like that. He was right, you know. I am filth, a stain. That's what they all see. That's what I am. Naruto's gaze hardened. He turned to face her fully in the silent, moonlit crater. He wasn't right. He was an idiot, and a bigot, and now he's dust. You don't understand, she said, her voice breaking. The pain of a lifetime pouring out. You're pure. You're all light and golden chakra. You don't know what it's like to have this darkness. This tainted blood. Naruto was silent for a long moment. He just looked at her, and his expression was ancient and profoundly sad. You really believe that? He held up his right hand. A wisp of chakra appeared. But it wasn't gold. It was red, bubbling, vicious, and seething with a malice that made Akeno flinch. I was a Jinchuriki, he said, his voice low. A human sacrifice. I had a nine-tailed demon fox sealed inside me the day I was born. For my entire childhood, everyone looked at me with that look. The one you're so afraid of. Hatred, fear, disgust. He let the red chakra dance on his fingers. They called me a monster. A demon. A curse. Filth. I didn't have half a bad heritage, Akeno. I was all monster, to them. Akeno's eyes were wide, her hands covering her mouth. He understood. He was right about one thing, Naruto said. The red chakra fading. Your power is conflicted. Because you hate a part of yourself. And it's making you weak. She looked at him, this man who was a sun, who was also a shadow. This king who had defended her honor with a rage that eclipsed her own. She took a shuddering breath. She made a choice. You You accepted it, she whispered. That red rage, you made it part of you. I did, he said simply. It's not about being pure. It's about being whole. She closed her eyes. Then, let me show you. She let go. She let go of the control, the fear, the shame. She let the part of her she hated, the part she was, come to the front. Her demonic power surged, but it was met by her holy power. And this time, they didn't just mix. They fused. Her wings changed. No longer just 2 leathery devil wings. 2, 4, 6, 12 massive, feathered, jet black wings erupted from her back. They were the wings of a seraph. The wings of a barakiel. They were hers. Her aura was a storm of black and gold, a perfect, dangerous, and utterly beautiful harmony. She opened her eyes, her violet irises now glowing with an inner light. She was magnificent. She was terrifying. And she was completely, totally vulnerable. She waited for the disgust, the fear, the rejection. Naruto just watched the transformation. His head was tilted, not in shock, but in appreciation. A slow, genuine smile spread across his face. There you are, he said, his voice soft. That's it. That's the real Akeno Himehime. Akeno's breath hitched. She didn't know she was holding spilled. You're not. Disgusted. Disgusted. He chuckled. A warm, real sound. He took a step closer. Akeno, that's power. It's beautiful. It's raw. It's wild. But it's finally yours. It's not conflicted. It's fused. He was inches from her now. She could feel the warmth from his body. He wasn't looking at her like a prize. He wasn't looking at her like a monster. He was looking at her, like she was strong. But it's wild, he said, his voice dropping, intimate in the silence. You have no control. You need refinement. Just like I'm teaching Kaneko. If you'll let me, I can teach you how to master it. She looked into his blue eyes, and for the first time, she wasn't hiding. She wasn't smiling her fake smile. She was just, Akeno. She whispered, her voice husky, her 12 wings trembling. I would like that very much. Naruto-kun. Chapter 7 End. Chapter 8. The Price of Arrogance. The room was white. The walls were white. The floor was white. The sheets on the cot were white. It was a sterile, soundproofed, magical holding cell in a Grimoire-owned medical facility. It was, for Issei Hyodo, a personal hell. He sat on the edge of the cot. His body hunched. It had been weeks. Weeks since the match. Weeks since his scream had echoed in the empty arena. They had healed his body. His arm, the one Naruto's Rasengan had mangled, was smooth and unscarred, but the real wound, the phantom one, was still there. He could no longer feel D-Drake. The link was gone, shattered by the Rasengan. He could no longer feel Rias. The king-to-pawn connection. The bond that had defined his entire reincarnated life, was severed. He was hollow. He was a normal, powerless, broken human boy, trapped in a white room in the middle of hell. He'd spent the first week raging. The second, weeping. Now, he was just empty. He was staring at his own reflection in the mirrored glass wall when she appeared. The door didn't open. She just stepped out of the shadows in the corner. It was Livia, the analyst, from the stadium. The one with the midnight black hair and the sympathetic, amethyst eyes. Issei didn't even flinch. He just kept staring at his reflection. Come to gloat. Or did you bring a knife this time? Just get it over with. Oh, Issei-kun, she said, her voice a silk and velvet caress. She glided to his side, sitting on the cot next to him. She smelled like lavender and something cold. Like starlight. Why would I want to hurt you? You're the real victim here. He finally looked at her, his eyes dull. What? He stole them, she whispered, her eyes full of a perfect, practiced pity. He stole your power. He stole your king. He stole your family. You were a hero. The Red Dragon Emperor. You saved them from Riser Phoenix. You fought for them. And he just took them. With a single, arrogant display. A spark. A tiny, toxic ember in the hollow void of his chest. He cheated. He was too strong. It wasn't fair. Of course it wasn't, Livia soothed, placing a delicate, cool hand on his arm. He's an anomaly. He's a thief. He doesn't belong here. And, he's hurting them, you know. Issei's head snapped up. What? I've heard things, she said, leaning closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He's a brutal master. He's forcing them to train. Day and night. Kiba, Akeno, Kaneko. He's breaking them, remaking them into his own personal weapons. They're terrified. They're just waiting for their hero to come and save them. It was a lie. A beautiful, perfect, surgical lie. It was everything his shattered ego needed to hear. He wasn't the villain. He wasn't the arrogant fool who had lost everything. He was the hero. He was the victim. And they were damsels. He's hurting them. Issei's hands clenched. The hollow feeling was being replaced by a hot, familiar, righteous rage. That bastard. I'll kill him. But you can't, can you? Livia said, her voice full of pity. He broke your sacred gear. You're nothing. He looked at his hands. Useless. The Welsh dragon is gone, Issei-kun, she said. But the concept of the Red Dragon Emperor, that's a different matter. Power is just power. She smiled, a small, secret smile. The weaver believes that a thread, once cut, can be rewoven. She reached into a fold of her dress and pulled something out. It was a shard of crystal. It was not red. It was a deep, oily black, veined with the same, sick, black and white energy that had erased Lord Corvus. He stole your power, she said, holding the crystal up. What if I told you, you could take it back? A new thread. A better one. A gift from the Weaver of Ends. All you have to do, is accept. Issei looked at the crystal. He saw a path. A way to get his power back. A way to save them. To save Rias. I'll do it, he snarled, his eyes burning with a new, dark light. Give it to me. I'll make him pay. I'll save them. Of course you will, hero, Livia whispered, and she pressed the shard into his chest. Issei screamed. It was not a human sound. It was agony. The shard didn't just enter his chest. It unraveled, sinking into his soul, his magical core, his very DNA. It felt cold. It felt like nothing. Issei, partner, no, what have you done? Ddrake's voice. It was distant, panicked, trapped. Ddrake. Issei choked, falling to his knees, his body convulsing. It's the void. It's unmaking. It's eating me. Get it out. Get it. Triple-A arg. Ddrake's roar of agony was cut short, silenced. Issei looked at his arm. The flesh rippled. It tore. Black, oily, corrupted metal, veined with that sickening white light, burst from his skin, forming a new gauntlet. It was a mockery of the boosted gear. It was a thing of pure, conceptual void. System error. Rebooting. Welsh Dragon. QLIPPOTH drive. The voice was not Ddrake. It was a cold, dead, mechanical rasp. Issei got to his feet. His body felt wrong. But it was powerful. Oh, gods, it was so powerful. Rias, he whispered, his voice a low, distorted growl. I'm coming to save you. Livia smiled, her face splitting into the two-faced sigil of Janus, and she melted back into the shadows. The wall to the holding cell dissolved into black dust. The Seatree estate was a masterpiece of cold, elegant, modern design, glass walls, stark white marble, and a logic-defying architecture of floating platforms and water features. It was the last place in the world Naruto wanted to be. He hated this. He hated formal wear. The black, high-collared suit felt stiff, a costume. He was standing on a balcony, overlooking a grand ballroom filled with the heirs and heiresses of the underworld's elite. They were all children. Children playing at politics, sipping drinks, and measuring each other's power levels. You look tense, King. Akeno Himahima glided to his side. She was a vision. A catastrophe. She wore a backless, deep violet dress that clung to her curves, her 12 black wings retracted, but her presence was a low, electric hum. She had mastered her new form. She was no longer conflicted. She was just whole. And she was, to every male in the room, utterly terrifying and intoxicating. I hate this, Naruto grumbled, adjusting his collar. This is pointless. I should be training Kaneko. This is training. Naruto-kun, Akano said, her voice a low, teasing purr. She handed him a glass of champagne. This is the real battlefield. Sona-chan is over there. Renegotiating trade routes based on your match. Lord Bale just pledged his support to your faction. You're not just a warrior anymore. You're a symbol. You need to socialize. He's right, though. This is pointless, Kiba said, appearing on Naruto's other side. He looked sharp, clean-cut in a black suit of his own. Sona Citri is a friend. But everyone else here, they're just waiting to see if you'll bleed. Naruto took the glass from Akano and just held it. He looked at his two pieces. His knight, his queen. They stood with him, not as servants, but as partners. As his left and right hand. They had found their place. His gaze scanned the room, and he saw her. Rias Grimori. She was standing alone, in a corner, by a waterfall of glass. She wore a simple, elegant crimson dress. But she was a ghost. A pariah. People gave her a wide berth. She was no longer a king. She was a disgrace. The woman who had lost her entire peerage. Their eyes met across the ballroom. Naruto saw nothing. The hollow, empty look was back. She looked at him, then at Akano and Kiba, who stood so confidently at his side. Her gaze lingered, full of a pain he couldn't name. She turned, looking out at the gardens, her shoulders slumped. She looks. Kiba started, his voice strained. She looks lost. She is lost, Kiba-kun, Akano said, her voice soft, all teasing gone. We were her family, and she lost us. Now, she has nothing. Before Naruto could process this, before he could decide what to do, the world ended. Boom. The sound was not an explosion. It was a negation. The complex wards of the Citri estate, woven by Ajuka Beelzebub himself, didn't just shatter. They unraveled. They dissolved into black and white dust. An alarm shrieked. The ballroom erupted into chaos. A second boom as the main doors were vaporized. He stood in the doorway. It was Issei. But it wasn't. It was a nightmare. A juggernaut drive, but wrong. It was not crimson. It was a shifting, oily black, veined with the pulsating, cancerous, black and white energy of Janus. It was leaking void. The air around it died. It was incomplete, unstable, a suit of armor made of pure screaming nothing. Opening square bracket ... Targets. Acquired. Issei. Rias whispered, her blood running cold. The monster's head, a corrupted, draconic mockery, snapped toward her. Rias. The voice was Issei's, but it was torn, layered, 1,000 echoes of rage and pain. I've come to save you. He lunged. Not at Naruto. At Rias. He was a blur of impossible, chaotic speed. The Citri guards, Sona's peerage, tried to intercept. Saji Genshiro, Sona's pawn, threw up a Vritra-laced barrier. The monster's black claw touched it. The barrier didn't break. It dissolved. The unmaking energy ate it. He's erasing it. Sona Citri screamed, her tactical mind unable to process this. Rias, get back, Kiba yelled, moving to intercept. But the monster was too fast. Its claw, dripping with that same conceptual void that had erased Corvus, was inches from Rias's face. She was paralyzed, her eyes wide with terror. She was going to die. She was going to be unmade. Boom. A sun erupted in the ballroom. A colossal, golden hand, made of pure, solidified chakra, smashed through the glass wall of the balcony. It was the hand of a god. It caught the monster's claw. The clash of creation and unmaking was a sonic boom that vaporized every piece of glass in the estate. Outside, looming over the mansion, was the full, nine-tailed, Biju mode avatar. Naruto stood in the crystal on its forehead. His KCM sage mode blazing, his face a mask of cold, absolute fury. Kiba, Akano, Sona, Naruto's voice boomed, amplified by the avatar. Get everyone out, now. Akano and Kiba didn't hesitate. They were a flash of speed and lightning, evacuating the screaming, panicked heirs. The avatar's hand squeezed, and it threw the juggernaut, sending the monster crashing through the Citri estate and into the gardens. Rias, Issei's monster roared, rising from the rubble. He did this. I'll kill him and you'll be free. He opened his maw. A sphere of that oily, black and white void began to form. It was a corrupted dragon shot. It wasn't just destruction, it was annihilation. You're not sane, Naruto growled. The Avatar's own mouth opened. A perfect, dense, tailed beast bomb formed in an instant. They both fired. The explosion was silent. It was a sphere of pure, devouring negation. The entire Cetri estate, the gardens, everything, was vaporized. A perfect, half-mile-wide crater was all that remained. In the sky, the Avatar's arm was gone from the elbow down. It had been unmade. Issei's juggernaut was smoking, its armor cracked, but it was regenerating. Rias was on her knees on a piece of floating rubble, protected by Kiba, who had shielded her with his body. She was staring, horrified. He's crying, she whispered. She could hear him. Inside the monster. A faint, sobbing sound. Give them back. She's mine. It hurts. Make it stop. He was a child, given a nuclear bomb, and it was killing him. The Biju Avatar's arm regenerated in a flash of gold. It lunged, its massive hands pinning the juggernaut to the bottom of the new crater. Uzumaki. A voice, faint and full of agony, echoed in Naruto's mind. It was Didrake. He's eating my soul. The boy is gone. Please, kill him. Kill us. End this agony. Naruto's Avatar's eyes were sad. He looked down at the struggling, weeping, screaming monster. I don't kill kids, dragon, Naruto whispered. Even stupid ones. He looked at Issei. But I have to stop you. The Avatar's 9, massive, golden tails rose. They weren't tails. They were chains. Golden, fuinjutsu-laced adamantine sealing chains. They slammed down, piercing the juggernaut's limbs, its chest, pinning it to the earth. A massive Torii gate seal slammed down from the sky, sealing the monster in place. Triple A arg. Let me go. Rias. Raya Aas. Naruto, in his human KCM Sage mode, leapt from the Avatar's head. He landed, hard, on the monster's chest. He looked down at the corrupted, screaming helmet. I'm sorry about this, Issei, he said. He thrust his hand into the juggernaut's core. Not an attack, a seal. His fuinjutsu, the art of his mother. The art of the sage, flared. Adamantine sealing chains. Soul sever. It was an exorcism. Issei's real scream echoed across the sky. The black, oily armor cracked. The Janus sigils shattered. The corrupted, void energy was forcibly ripped from his body, his soul, his link to Didrake. It was a vortex of pure, dark malice. Naruto absorbed it into his palm, a five-pronged seal flaring to life, imprisoning the void energy within his own body. The juggernaut armor dissolved. The unmaking energy was gone. Issei Hyodo, back in his tattered white prison uniform, fell to the ground. His right arm, the one the new gauntlet had burst from, was gone. It was a blackened, cauterized stump above the elbow. He was alive. He was breathing. But he was empty. His connection to Didrake, his soul, was silent. Sealed away. The Biju Avatar faded. Naruto landed on the ground, his KCM cloak receding. He was panting, his right hand smoking, the black seal on his palm glowing angrily. Silence. The smoking crater was silent. Sona and her peerage stared, horrified. Kiba and Akeno stood at Naruto's side, their new king. Rias Grimori walked forward. Her crimson dress was torn, her hair a mess. Her face streaked with tears and dust. She looked at the unconscious, broken body of Issei. The boy she thought she loved. The boy who was her greatest failure. Then, she looked at Naruto. The man who had just saved her life. The man who had restrained himself, who had saved Issei from himself, even when the dragon himself had begged for death. He hadn't killed. He had healed. He had sealed. She walked right up to him. He tensed, expecting a scream, a slap, a curse. Rias Grimori bowed. A deep, formal, 90-degree bow. A bow of a vassal to a liege. Lord Uzumaki. Her voice was not a whisper. It was not broken. It was clear, strong, and absolute. Naruto blinked. Rias. She straightened, and her blue-green eyes met his. The hollow, dead look was gone. It was replaced by a blazing, intelligent fire he had never seen before. I have been a fool, she said, her voice ringing in the crater. A child. I was a king, who was a slave to her family's name. I followed a pawn who was a slave to his own arrogance. She glanced at Issei's body. He is my past. My failure. She looked back at Naruto, her gaze unwavering. You are my future. My king. Naruto held up a hand. Rias, I told you, I'm not your. Let me finish. She took a step closer. I am not your prize. I am not your peace, though I will be, if you command it. But that is not what I am asking. Her voice dropped, becoming intimate, conspiratorial, and utterly brilliant. I am Rias Grimori. I have one of the sharpest strategic minds in the underworld. I have the political knowledge you lack. I have the power of destruction. You are a general. You are a warrior, but you are not a ruler. You don't know this world. You don't want to. She put her hand on her heart, her eyes blazing with a new, fierce purpose. Let me stand with you. Not as your captive, not as your pawn. Let me be your queen. It was a declaration, a political alliance, a personal vow. She was offering him her mind, her power, and her fierce, broken, and reforged Grimori will. Naruto stared at her, and for the first time, he wasn't looking at a broken girl. He was seeing the king she was always meant to be. He didn't smile, he just nodded. A slow, serious, profound gesture of acceptance. A king, he said, his voice quiet, needs a queen. Chapter 8 End. Chapter 9. The Divine Congress. The crater was a half-mile wide. Smoking scar. It was, until an hour ago, the ancestral home of the Citri clan. Now, it was a political ground zero. Ajuka Beelzebub stood at the epicenter, his hands behind his back. His glasses reflecting the dull, red light of the sky. His formulas, visible only to him, scrawled through the air, analyzing the residual energy. It was a language he had never seen. A mathematics of unmaking. He didn't just break the wards, Searsex, Ajuka said, his voice quiet, grim. He erased them. He unwrote them from reality. This Cliff-Oath energy, it's not just power. It's an anti-concept. Searsex Lucifer stood nearby, his arms crossed. He was staring at the man at the edge of the crater. Naruto. Naruto was sitting on a jagged piece of marble, his suit jacket gone, his sleeves rolled up. He was staring at his right palm. The 5-pronged seal he'd used to imprison the corrupted void energy was black against his skin, a stark, 5-line tattoo. It was angry, pulsing with a faint, cold light, like a black star trapped under his skin. Rias Grimori stood at his side, not touching him, but with him. Her crimson dress was torn, her hair was a mess, but she had never looked more like a king. Her face was set in a mask of cold, analytical calm. She was no longer a ghost. She was a general on a battlefield. The political fallout will be catastrophic, she said, her voice low. Sona and her peerage are safe, thanks to your team. But Janus has just proven it can, and will, strike a great house. The other pillars, Baal, Agaras, Visago, they're terrified. And terrified people are stupid. They're not just terrified, Naruto said, not looking up from his hand. There, next, he finally clenched his fist, hiding the seal. This was a message, one that has been heard, Searsex said, approaching them. His jovial nature was gone. This was the Lord of Devils. Michael and Azazel are already en route to a secure location. An emergency congress has been called. The leaders of the 3 factions. You, Lord Uzumaki, are not invited. You are summoned. Rias's head snapped up. Summoned. Onisama, he is a king. He is not a vassal to be. He is the epicenter of this, Rias. Searsex cut her off, his voice firm. The anomaly. The thread this weaver wants to pull. They don't know if he's our savior, or our plague. And frankly, after this, he gestured to the smoking crater. Quote. I'm not sure they're wrong to ask. Naruto stood up. They can ask, but they won't like the answer. He looked at Rias. Get the team. We're not going to a summons. We're going to a war council. Rias's lips curled into a small, sharp, proud smile. At once, my king. The Nexus was a place that shouldn't exist. A pocket dimension created by the original 4 Satans and God. It was a floating platform of white marble suspended in a void of swirling, silver nebulae. It was the ultimate neutral ground. A massive, circular table dominated the room. At one end sat the devils, Searsex, a grave Seraphal Leviathan, and Ajuka. At another, the angels. The Archangel Michael, his face serene but his eyes troubled, flanked by his sister, Gabriel, and the grim-faced seraph, Griselda. At the third, the fallen. Azazel, looking uncharacteristically serious as he cleaned his glasses, and Penemu, the scribe of heaven. A golden teleportation circle, emblazoned with the Uzumaki spiral, flared to life. The entire room tensed, their power flaring. Naruto stepped out. He was not alone. He was a king, and this was his court. He wore a simple, high-collared black tunic and white coat. A leader's uniform. At his right, a step behind, was Rias, her red hair blazing, her eyes sweeping the room, calculating every threat, every political angle. At his left, a step behind, was Akeno. Her 12 black wings furled but visible, a mantle of her new, complete power. Her eyes were fixed, with a cool, unreadable confidence, on one man. Barakiel, her father, the fallen angel governor just stared at her wings. His face was a mask of shock, disbelief, and a dawning, terrible regret. Akeno just gave him a slow, almost imperceptible nod. I am whole, no thanks to you. Behind them, Kiba and Zenobia, hands on their swords, their eyes sharp, scanning. Kaneko, in her balanced sage mode, a silent, coiled spring of power. Gentetsu, a mountain of stone and seals. And Asia, her hands clasped, not in fear, but in prayerful focus, her power as a healer now a palpable, protective aura. This was not a broken peerage. This was a phalanx. Azazel was the first to break the silence. He let out a low whistle. Well, I'll be damned. You did clean them up, kid. That's quite the entrance. Lord Uzumaki, Michael said, his voice a calm melody that nonetheless vibrated with power. We are glad you. With all respect, Lord Michael, this is a farce. The voice was sharp, zealous. It came from a seraph standing behind Michael, a silver-haired angel with 4 wings and fire in his eyes. Seraphiel, the strong right hand of heaven. This anomaly, Seraphiel declared, pointing at Naruto, has been in our world for 1 year. In that time, he has brought shame to 2 great houses. Shattered the political balance of the raiding games, and now, this. He has drawn an enemy from the dark, an enemy who corrupted a Longinus and leveled a pillar of our society. He took a step forward, his voice rising. He is not an ally. He is a plague. He is a sickness, and this, Janus, is the fever. He must be contained. He must be purged before he undoes us all. The room went cold. Griselda put a hand on her sword. Searsex's eyes narrowed. Naruto just watched him. He let the silence hang, let the angel's fanaticism echo in the void. Then, he took a step forward. His team parting for him. You're right, Naruto said, his voice calm. Seraphiel blinked. Michael and Azazel both looked at Naruto, stunned. I am the anomaly, Naruto continued, his voice quiet. But it filled the room. And you're right. This, Janus, this weaver, is drawn to me. He is trying to pull this thread. He walked, slowly, toward the center of the table. He's drawn to me, because I'm the only thing in this world that's not on his tapestry. I'm the one piece he can't predict. The one variable he can't control. He stopped, looking Seraphiel dead in the eyes. You're angry because Issei Hyodo, corrupted by this thing, destroyed a mansion. I'm angry, because it's been in your house for months, maybe years, and you've been too busy with your Cold War to even notice. You've been playing your games, moving your pieces, while a cancer has been growing in your shadows. He held up his right hand. The black, 5-pronged seal pulsed, a speck of pure darkness against his skin. Janus didn't just attack the Citri estate. He tested me. He used Issei Hyodo to see how I'd react. He used Lord Corvus to test my team's loyalty. He is escalating. He has been, for a long time. And you've all been asleep. He turned, his gaze sweeping the leaders. Michael, Azazel, Searsex. I didn't start this war, he said, his voice the steel of a cage. I'm just the one who woke you up to the fact that you're in it. He let that sink in. You can blame me. You can call me a plague. You can try to purge me. A cold, dangerous smile touched his lips. Good luck with that. Or, he said, his voice ringing with authority, you can unite. You can stop posturing, stop pointing fingers, and fight back. The silence was absolute. Rias Gramori stepped forward, a perfect queen. Lord Uzumaki speaks plainly, a virtue this room seems to lack, she said, her voice a sharp, intelligent counterpoint to Naruto's raw power. What he is offering is an alliance. House Uzumaki, now with the full, formal backing of my own House Gramori, offers its complete military and strategic support in this war against Janus. She looked at the stunned leaders, her gaze as sharp as a scalpel. What do you offer? It was a power move. A political checkmate. She had just declared a new pillar, allied it with an old one, and demanded the other factions pick a side. Azazel was the first to react. He let out a sharp, barking laugh. Holy shit, she's brilliant. Sirzex, your little sister is terrifying. I love it. He stood up, his casual slouch gone. The kid's right, and the lady's right. We've been asleep. Grigori is in. We've been tracking this, unmaking, energy. All our research, it's yours. Michael smiled, a slow, serene expression. Heaven has long stood against the darkness. We will not falter now. He looked at Naruto, and his eyes were kind. Your light, Lord Uzumaki. It is a familiar, and welcome, one. We will stand with you. An alliance, Seraphil stammered. With devils. With him. With survival. Seraphil, Michael said, his voice gentle but firm. It is time for a new way. A fool's way. A new voice. It was not in the room. It was everywhere. The nexus shuddered. The swirling, silver nebulae outside turned a sick, oily black. The white marble floor cracked, the cracks spreading, not with force, but with rot. An attack. Azazel roared, his wings flaring. Here, the wards, they're not breaking. Ajuka yelled, his formulas turning a frantic, panicked red. They're being corrupted. A tear in the center of the room. Not a portal, a wound. It ripped open, and he stepped out. He was a god, dressed in the black, funerary robes of the Greek pantheon. His face was a mask, half gleaming gold, half bleached bone. The Janus sigil was carved into its forehead. In his hand, a massive scythe, its edge not sharp, but hazy, as if it were vibrating out of existence. It was Hades, the lord of the dead. Or, a vessel for something far, far worse. The weaver of ends demands order. Hades's voice rasped, a sound of dust and dry graves. The old, failed tapestry, must be culled. The anomaly, and the failed gods who protect it, will be erased. He moved. He wasn't fast. He was inevitable. He wasn't aiming for Naruto. He was aiming for Michael. A symbolic, decapitating strike. Lord Michael. Griselda screamed, she and the seraphim moving to intercept, their light swords drawn. They were too slow. The scythe was already there, its unmaking edge about to touch the archangel's neck. Gantetsu. Naruto's roar was a physical force. In a flash of Rias's crimson teleportation magic, the 10-foot golem appeared between Michael and Hades. The scythe struck. Scree. The sound was a violation. The scythe, which should have unmade the rook, struck him. Gantetsu's blue Fuinjutsu seals flared, burning with an intensity that outshone the room. They were holding. They were fighting the unmaking concept. But they were cracking. Hades's eyes, visible behind the mask, widened in surprise. Now, this one word, and everything happened. It wasn't a chaotic brawl. It was a shinobi ambush. Kiba, Xenovia, Hamstring. The two knights were blurs, attacking from opposite flanks. Not his head, not his chest. Their blades, wreathed in holy and speed-based power, struck the back of his knees. Their swords skated off his corrupted, divine armor, but the force made him buckle. Akeno. Bind him. Akeno was already in the air, her 12 wings a vortex of power. A cage of pure, fused, black and gold holy lightning slammed down, enveloping Hades, who roared as the conflicting, perfected energies burned his skin. Kaneko. Ground him. Kaneko, in her small, silent, perfect sage mode, was under him. She didn't hit him. She punched the marble floor. Sage art. Earthly rupture. The entire platform beneath Hades shattered, buckling, throwing the god completely off balance. The leaders of the three factions stared. They hadn't even moved. In less than 5 seconds, a god of death had been intercepted, contained, and crippled by a single, cohesive team. Rias, get them out. Clear the field, Naruto yelled. Rias didn't argue. Searzex, Michael, Azazel, my circle, now. She was already casting the teleportation spell. He's your target, Naruto. She called back. Don't let him recover. Wasn't planning on it. Naruto roared back. He exploded in a column of golden fire. KCM Sage Mode. He was a sun in the dark, corrupted nexus. Asia, now. Asia, who had been protected by Griselda, her eyes fierce with a loyalty that burned brighter than any angel's, clasped her hands. Her twilight healing flared, but it wasn't a gentle, green light. It was a torrent of pure, golden, holy affinity energy. It wasn't healing Naruto. It was boosting him. Naruto's golden cloak ignited, the power surging, turning a blinding, pure white. Hades, recovering, brought his scythe up. A wave of unmaking energy aimed at the approaching star. Naruto met it. He didn't have a weapon. He had a concept. He had seen Rias do it. He had felt the power. And in the heat of battle, he copied it. He fused it. In his right hand, a golden, blazing Rasengan formed. But in its core, a spiraling, angry vortex of the black-red Grimoire power of destruction. Creation. And unmaking. Wielded as one. Rasengan. Grimoire's void. He didn't just hit the wave of darkness. He drilled through it. Hades's eyes went wide behind his mask. He tried to bring his scythe up to block. He was too slow. Naruto slammed the attack into the god's chest. There was no explosion. Just silence. A catastrophic implosion of gold and crimson light. The very concept of Hades's armor, of the Janus corruption, was torn apart. Crack. The Janus mask shattered. The divine armor disintegrated. Hades was thrown backward, crashing into the edge of the nexus, his body smoking, broken. He stared at Naruto, his eyes no longer corrupted, just shocked. This is not the end. Hades rasped. He dissolved into black dust and shadows, his scythe clattering to the ground. He had retreated. The nexus was silent. The dark corruption faded, the silver nebulae returning. The leaders of the three factions, safe on the edge of the platform, just stared. They stared at the smoking spot where a god had been. They stared at the panting, golden-cloaked king. And they stared at his team, who had already formed a protective perimeter around him. Azazel just started to clap. A slow, stunned, respectful clap. Holy shit, kid, he breathed. I've got nothing. That was a team. Michael stepped forward, his face serene, but his eyes blazing with a new, profound respect. He bowed his head. Lord Uzumaki, you did not just show us the war. You, and your family, just fought our first battle for us. Heaven is in your debt. Searzex looked at Rias, who was watching Naruto, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated pride. You chose well, little sister, he murmured, his voice full of an admiration he'd never shown before. You've truly become a king. Naruto's KCM cloak faded. He let out a long, slow breath. He was tired. He looked at his team. At Kiba and Xenovia, already arguing over who had hit Hades's left leg first. At Akino, who just gave him a slow, smoky wink. At Kaneko, who was calmly unwrapping a chocolate bar. At Rias, who simply walked to his side, took a cloth from her pocket, and began to wipe a smudge of dust from his cheek. A simple, domestic, intimate gesture of a partner. He wasn't alone. He was a king. This was his court. Naruto looked at the leaders, his gaze steady. All right, the war is on. He turned to Rias. What's our next move? Chapter 9 End. Chapter 10. The Sage King's Court. The white marble of the Nexus faded, replaced by the warm, dark wood of the Uzumaki Estate's teleportation circle. The air was still, silent, and clean. It smelled like cedar and the faint, sharp scent of ozone from the new, overlapping barrier system. They were home. The team materialized, not as a scattered group, but as a unit. Kiba and Xenovia automatically fanned out, securing the perimeter of the room. Akino's wings were still visible, 12-feathered shadow, her senses scanning the property. Kaneko was a small, silent anchor, her sage mode active, her gaze distant. Gentetsu was a mountain by the door. Naruto let out a long breath, the white-hot KCM cloak finally receding, leaving him in his torn, battle-worn tunic. He felt exhausted. Not just his body, his soul ached from the strain of containing the void fragment in his palm. Debrief. War room. 10 minutes. The order was not his. It was Rias Grimori's. Her voice, crisp and commanding, cut through the post-battle adrenaline. She was already moving, her torn crimson dress sweeping the floor, her mind 1,000 miles ahead. Naruto just nodded, watching her go. This was new, and it was good. He didn't have to be the cage and the strategist. He just had to be the sword. She could be the hand that aimed him. Akeno glided to his side, her expression a mix of concern and her old, teasing purr. My, king. You look like you just went 10 rounds with, well, a god. You should rest. Can't, he grumbled, looking at his right hand. The black 5-pronged seal was throbbing, a cold, angry spot on his palm. This thing, it's squirming. Darkness, it suits you, Akeno whispered, her voice for his ears only. She gently traced the edge of the seal with her fingernail, a jolt of her own fused black and gold energy passing between them. It was a brief, intimate comfort. But don't let it consume you. Wouldn't dream of it, he said, meeting her gaze. He trusted her with this understanding of the filth they both now carried. He turned to the rest of the team. Rias is right. Get patched up. Asia, check on them. On it, Asia said, her voice bright. She was no longer the cowering, terrified girl. The battle at the Nexus, boosting a Biju mode king, had awakened a new, fierce confidence in her. She was a healer, and she was vital. Kiba-san, your shoulder is dislocated. Don't you dare try to pop it in yourself. Zenobia-san, you're bleeding. It's just a scratch. Zenobia protested, but she was already following Asia to the infirmary. Kiba just grunted, allowing the small bishop to drag him away. Naruto was left alone with Akeno and Kaneko. She's loud, Kaneko muttered, looking at Asia's retreating back. She found her voice, Naruto said, a small, proud smile touching his lips. He looked at Kaneko. Your balance was perfect. Your earthly rupture, it was exactly what I needed. Good work. Kaneko's ears twitched. She just gave a single, curt nod. But her cheeks flushed, ever so slightly, with pleasure. I'm going to meditate. The void. It made the natural energy twitchy. She padded off toward the dojo, a picture of calm control. And then there was one, Akeno purred, moving closer. Rias can handle the strategy. But you need management. I don't need. She put a finger to his lips. You're a warrior, Naruto-kun. You know how to fight. You don't know how to rest. You're holding a piece of a primordial god's unmaking power in your hand, and you're treating it like a splinter. Go, shower. I'll bring you something to drink. Her tone was light, but her eyes were in order. He sighed. She was right. He felt gross. Fine. But 10 minutes. Yufufu. We'll see. An hour later, Naruto was in his study. The war room. It was a large, minimalist space, dominated by a massive, low table. On it was not a map of Konoha, but a 3-dimensional, magical projection of the underworld, heaven, and the human world. Small, glowing pieces, red for Grimori, blue for Citri, gold for Uzumaki, white for heaven, were scattered across it. He was dressed in a simple gray t-shirt and black pants, his hand wrapped in white fuinjutsu-laced bandages. He was sipping a hot, sweet tea Akeno had forced on him. The door slid open. Rias entered. She had changed. She wore a simple, severe, high-collared black dress. It was not a dress of mourning. It was a uniform. Her hair was pulled back into a tight, high ponytail. She was no longer Rias the heiress. She was Rias the queen. She was holding a tablet. They're here. Who? My parents. Naruto tensed. To formalize the alliance, Rias said, her voice flat. And to thank you. Thank me for giving them their daughter back, she said, her voice softening. She looked at him, her blue-green eyes clear. I was a child, Naruto. A spoiled, idealistic child. I I let Issei do what he did. I was too weak to be a king. You broke me. And then you forged me into something new. I didn't do anything, Rias, he said, uncomfortable. You did that. We did it together, she corrected, stepping to the map. Her romance was not in her touch. It was in her mind. It was in the way she moved, completely at ease, in his personal space, her focus entirely on the mission. Now, to business. The debrief. Your strategy at the Nexus was brutal and effective, but it was reactive. She tapped the map. Kiba and Xenovia. Their hamstring maneuver was a success, but they were outside of Akino's binding field. If Hades's counterattack had been an AoE, I would have lost both my knights. Naruto frowned. She was right. He'd been focused on the kill, not the aftermath. Akino's binding, Rias continued, her finger moving. Perfect. But she used 70% of her reserves in one shot. She was a glass cannon. We need to train her endurance. Kaneko was flawless. She's your new anchor. She looked at him, her gaze sharp. And you're a nuclear weapon. You are our last resort. Not our first. You cannot be the one on the front line every time. We need to build a system where the team handles the threat, and you just end it. You are a king, Naruto. Not just a pawn. He was stunned. Her analysis was sharp, cold, and absolutely correct. This was the partner he needed. This was the cage he'd been missing. So, he said, his voice full of a new respect. What's our next move, Queen? Rias smiled. A real, brilliant, confident smile. Janus is a weaver. He pulls at threads. He probes. He used Corvus. He used Issei. He used Hades. He's testing us. He's looking for the next weak thread to pull. So, we don't give him one. We fortify. She tapped the map. We combine our forces. My political knowledge, your Fuinjutsu. We upgrade the defenses of all our allies. Cetri, Bale. We make a fortress of the underworld. And we go hunting. Hunting. He's a weaver. He works through agents, Rias said. Livia, Corvus, Issei, Hades. We find the next one. Before he can be used. Good plan, Naruto said. Where do we? A soft knock. Akino entered, carrying a fresh pot of tea. Your parents are in the main hall, Rias-chan. And there's someone else. Who? Issei-kun. Asia brought him. The main hall was tense. Lord Zeodicus and Venelana Grimori stood, looking awkward, humbled. They had seen the broadcast from the Nexus. They had seen their daughter, Rias, commanding a force that had defeated a god. In a corner, near the garden, Asia was kneeling next to a figure in a simple, gray yukata. Issei. He was small, hollow. His left arm was in his sleeve. His right was an empty sleeve, neatly pinned. He was staring at the koi pond, his face pale, his eyes dead. The corruption was gone, but so was the fire. So was Drake. So was... Issei. Asia was patiently holding a bowl of rice. You have to eat, Issei-san. Please. Just a little. He didn't respond. He just stared. A broken, powerless, one-armed boy. A living monument to the price of arrogance. Lord Uzumaki, Zeodicus Grimori said, stepping forward. He bowed. Not a small, political nod. A deep, profound bow. My house, my family, is in your debt. What you have done for my daughter, what you have done for us all. We are here to formalize the alliance. House Grimori follows House Uzumaki. It was a staggering political statement. A great house, following a new, unblooded one. Naruto just nodded. We're not doing this for debt. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. We're all on the same side. He looked past them, at Issei. His face was a mask of pity. He walked past the great house leaders, kneeling in front of the broken boy. Asia looked up, scared. King, he's not. It's okay, Asia, Naruto said softly. He looked at Issei. The boy didn't even acknowledge him. Issei, Naruto said, his voice quiet. No response. The dragon, D-Drake, he's not gone. He's sealed. I had to save you both. The void, it was eating him. Issei's one hand twitched. It's a long road, Naruto said. A hard one. But It's not the end. I've been here. I've been this, empty. You can come back from it. But you have to take the first step. He gestured to the bowl in Asia's hand. Eat. Issei's gaze slowly, agonizingly, moved from the pond to Naruto's face. His eyes were ancient, full of a terrible, soul-shattering regret. He looked at the bowl, and then, with his one trembling hand, he took it. He ate. It was a start. Akeno and Rias watched from the doorway, a look of profound, complex emotion on their faces. It was a new family, forged in fire, in loss, in victory. It was a court, a real one. And then, the world screamed. It wasn't a sound. It was a feeling, a violent, nauseating lurch in the fabric of reality. An alarm, one Naruto had personally designed, blared. It wasn't a perimeter breach. It was a dimensional alarm. WHOOOOOOM. WHOOOOOM. WHOOOOOM. What is that? Venelana gasped. Naruto was already on his feet. His team, all of them, Kiba, Zenobia, Kaneko, Gantetsu, materializing in the hall. They were in full combat gear. He's here, Naruto said, his voice a low, dangerous growl. The seal on his hand was burning. They burst onto the main balcony, the one overlooking the mountains. The sky was tearing. It wasn't a portal. It wasn't a magical circle. It was a rip, a massive, jagged, black and white wound in the sky. It stretched from horizon to horizon, and it leaked that same, cold, unmaking energy of the void. It was a rift. It wasn't an attack. It was a herald. It was a door. Janus was no longer probing. He was no longer testing. He was coming. Naruto stood on the balcony, the wind from the rift whipping his white coat. His new family, his court, stood at his back. Rias, his queen, at his right. Akeno, his second, at his left. His knights, his rook, his bishops, his pawns, his peerage. They were silent. They were ready. He looked at the tear in the world, at the darkness that was about to pour through. He didn't feel fear. He didn't feel anger. He just felt ready. He looked over his shoulder, a small, sharp, confident grin on his face. All right, he said, his voice ringing with the authority of a king, a hero. He wants a war. Let's show him what a real king's family can do. Chapter 10 End.